Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Kushina gives Naruto overpowered full white chakra part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Naruto left Hizuna's home, still sore all over. Just this morning they defeated Zabuza and Haku, driving off the mercenary and freeing the land of Wave from that thieving backstabber Gato. He examined his own hand, that just a few hours ago was about to kill someone. However, he stopped abruptly when he felt something wrong in it. His chakra felt strange. There was no other term that came to mind. There were lingering traces of the red chakra he used against Haku, but it was hunted down by his own, somehow. Hunted down, surrounded, and then dispersed. Weird, he exclaimed, dismissing it almost immediately. After all, for what he knew about chakra, it could very well be normal. He wasn't the dead last just on paper, after all. Deciding to drown his own gloom with physical activity, he decided to climb trees again. Even if he tied with the bastard just a couple days ago, he just had to show him off by saving him from a bad fall in front of Sakura-chan. Damn him. He ran to the tree, sticking his feet to the trunk just as he learned, but the tree exploded under his feet and was propelled away, just like the very first time he tried. How? He asked himself, examining his feet. And again he felt those lingering traces of that red chakra and he realized it was obstructing his hard-won control. Angry and unthinking, he molded a large amount of chakra and sent it to his feet, to try to purge that red annoyance away. He succeeded a little too much, blasting away a good chunk of earth from under his feet and propelling himself a dozen meters off the ground. His fall was also much less than graceful, knocking his wind off, bringing stars in his vision and laboring to get his breath back. He sat down on the ground, waiting for his head to clear and promising himself to be much more careful in the future, when he noticed that the stars in his vision were not going away. Not only that, they were combining somehow in a sort of multicolored small flame. It was really pretty to watch. Naruto, he heard somewhere in his head. A female voice. An adult female voice with a hint of urgency. What? Who? He jumped on his feet and looked around, kunai ready in his hand. He was still a little woozy, but he could stand. Naruto, can you hear me? The voice sounded even more frantic now. He became very nervous. Who are you? He yelled, panicking because the voice sounded really close and he couldn't pinpoint the direction. Naruto, I hope you can hear me, even if I cannot. We are sending you a scroll with your inheritance, and I have no more time. Copy all of it in an empty scroll as soon as you can because it will disappear in a few hours. We love you, honey. As soon as the voice disappeared, the strange multicolored flame coalesced again and transformed in a medium-sized sealed scroll, and dropped into the ground with a soft splat. What the he exclaimed, surprised again. Especially by the love you part. Just the old man dared to tell him he loved him, not even Iruka-sensei. Well, he could understand Iruka-sensei not telling him that. Still wary, he approached the scroll cautiously and read the writing outside, Uzumaki family scroll basic 1. His heart jumped in his throat reading that. Uzumaki family scroll? He asked aloud and jumped to get the scroll, not even thinking about the possibility of falling into a trap. He grabbed the scroll and tried to open it, but failed. He examined the seal keeping it closed and remembered from a half-forgotten lesson, probably he was just listening to facilitate his sleep, about blood seals, to protect family scrolls from outsiders. He bit into his thumb, wincing because in his haste he bit a lot more than was strictly necessary and swept a couple liters of blood, well it felt like it, really, on the seal. And his eyes lit up, because from the very first words, it looked genuine. He started avidly reading it, but then he remembered the little fact about it disappearing in a few hours. He realized he could never be able to remember all of it, especially because there were a lot of hard words and technical stuff about chakra that he didn't have any idea about, but all his stuff was still at Hizuna's. Thinking quickly, he summoned a clone and sent him to gather an empty scroll and writing utensils from his pack. Good thing that it was Kakashi-sensei that compiled the list of things to bring into a mission. Else he would have used that space to pack a few more instant ramen cups and he would have been forced to borrow ink and brushes from someone. And they would have asked questions he wasn't ready to answer. If the scroll was telling the truth, those were his family jutsus. Something from his family, a proof that they existed somewhere, that someone could still be alive to send this scroll to him. Someone who could be happy that he existed, despite the fox, that would be happy with him becoming the Hokage. Someone who could acknowledge him. He continued reading the scroll, and became frustrated. It really was too complicated for him, but he didn't dare to ask even Sakura-chan. She would assume he stole it from Sasuke and would give it to him immediately, subdued by the will of the bastard into ignoring the fact that she truly loved Naruto even if she did not realize it yet. But she would realize it someday. However, he would not give up. He would not give the scroll up, either, not even to Kakashi-sensei or the old man. This was the first step to becoming Hokage and be recognized as a human being from the village. After all, having a family would mean that he was a human, wasn't it? The clone returned, slightly tired from running all the way from the house, and prepared to write. Naruto started dictating it, but not before creating 100 clones as sentries. Nobody would listen in on his family jutsu. 6 hours later he finished copying the scroll. It was a lengthy process, especially because he didn't know the meaning of most kanji, and had to copy them exactly as they were written. However, he could get the most important thing: he had a bloodline. At least the scroll said so, but he couldn't understand what the scroll said about it, just that it was something about healing. Well, considering that he healed pretty fast, it could be considered proof. Take that, Sasuke bastard! He literally had to restrain himself from yelling aloud from excitement, for clones had to tie him down and gag him so the bastard would not hear him, and despite wanting to brag to Sakura about it, he would wait until he could read, understand, and use what was in the scroll. After all, it would be even more impressive if he could show her, right? He was about to close the original scroll when from its back fell a letter, addressed to Uzumaki Naruto. He jumped to it immediately and read. Dear Naruto, I'm sorry about how your life has been until now, and I still cannot forgive myself for having to leave you alone all this time. However, it could not be avoided, because even now, I am dead. My name is Uzumaki Kushina, mother of Uzumaki Naruto. Naruto stopped reading abruptly. From his mother? And she was dead? The little hope he had about meeting his long-lost mother died then and there. He did not realize the strange wording of the dead part, though. At least I know she hadn't abandoned me. She even arranged for this to come to me, he said, looking at the family scroll. I know that by now you are dying to know your father's name, but we asked the third to hide it and letting you have my last name to protect you from his enemies. Damn! Exclaimed Naruto. I can tell you that even by knowing my full name it won't be easy to find his name. Consider it a challenge to your information-gathering skills. Naruto smiled, even if he didn't have much interest in the less showy aspect of the ninja life. Just to get to know who his father was, he was willing to rise to the challenge. However, for your protection, you'll have to keep my name for yourself. After all, if you have a chance to know your father by knowing it, your enemies may do it too. Naruto nodded, thinking that his mother was really smart. Now, since I don't have much time, I'll have to give you the introductory information to fully utilize the scroll that came with this letter. Even if it's the very first scroll of the Uzumaki clan, it still relies on previous knowledge that would have been taught to you by me. Naruto exhaled a relieved breath. So that's why I couldn't understand most of it, forgetting that not only he couldn't understand most of the scroll, but couldn't read most of the kanji as well. To understand the scroll, you'll have to borrow from the Konoha library these books: Understanding Chakra, The Chakra Pathways, Basic Guide to the Elements, A Basic Guide to the Human Body for the Dedicated Ninja, and the restricted book, The Celestial Gates. 5 more books! Cried Naruto, his resolve wavering, before he reminded himself that this would help him become Hokage. After all, enduring boredom made a great ninja, didn't it? I can tell you that getting the last book will be hard. Only Jonin and above may borrow it, but I know that you will be able to get it somehow. A Jonin-only book, it must be awesome! Exclaimed Naruto, imagining all the incredible jutsu it must contain. Now we must come to the most critical point. In the scroll you'll read about our bloodline, the white chakra. However, you probably won't be able to access it until you put a lot of hard work into it. Why? Cried Naruto, not caring that he was complaining to a letter. The reason stems from the day you were born. You have to know that the dead demon-consuming seal the 4th Hokage used to seal the demon fox into you, is the ultimate Uzumaki demon seal. It was designed with our bloodline in mind. If the 4th used any child but you in the sealing, he or she would have died almost instantly and the fox would now be free. Naruto was shocked. Soon the shock transformed into pride, however, because now he had the answer that plagued him since he could remember. Why me? Why they hate me? Became easier to accept after the traitor Mizuki spilled the beans about the fox. But then the question became why the 4th chose me? And now he had an answer. Konoha was saved by his family jutsu, and the only possible container able to live though it was Naruto himself. He could understand now why the 4th wanted him to be seen as the hero who saved the village. Even if they blatantly ignored that request. Eager to know more, he continued reading. Our bloodline normally makes our chakra so attuned to life that it destroys Yuki on contact, purifying it. However, the dead demon-consuming seal redirects that ability toward the seal, to kill the imprisoned demon. While that seal is on you, your chakra is perfectly ordinary, as if you didn't possess our bloodline. Stupid fox! Yelled Naruto. Not only he kills everyone and probably my parents, but he also is stealing away my bloodline. However, the seal has a failsafe built in it. When you are injured, the seal will partially release its control and both Yuki and white chakra would flow to the injury. While the Yuki does increase the damage to the area, your bloodline will both heal it and purify the Yuki. Unfortunately, it means that it is a rather painful process. I hope you can see it as a pain endurance training, because it was inevitable. Naruto's sweat dropped. He never noticed that his injuries hurt him more than other people. After all, it's hard to quantify pain to others. Another reason to hate the fox. The reason any other child would have died lies there. The seal forces your chakra and the demons to mingle. Yuki would easily infect the child and corrode his body, stopping the chakra that powers the seal and freeing the demon before the host died. With our bloodline, the reverse happens. Our white chakra purifies the Yuki that is slowly released from the demon in a controlled way, and with the scroll's help you will be able to willingly force more of your chakra into the seal, slowly killing the beast. Another way is losing control of your emotions. When you are experiencing a strong anger, your instinct will take control of your bloodline from the seal and the Yuki would flood your body, being consumed at an incredible pace by your white chakra that would work frantically to keep you alive. It is doubly dangerous because Yuki not only damages your body, but influences the human mind as well, making you feral, a berserker. And remember that even with its enhanced strength and speed, a high-level Jounin would use your almost mindless state to run circles around you, and afterward, when you are calmed down, Yuki residual will linger for a couple days, temporarily worsening your chakra control. Naruto nodded, having noticed it on his skin a few hours ago. He still had an evil grin at the thought of killing the damn fox with his own hands and in the meantime to be rewarded for it by having back his bloodline. The thought of having that task entrusted to him by the fourth himself was making him so happy he had rivers of tears on his cheeks, and his smile was threatening to split his face in half. To be trusted to do something of that magnitude eclipsed anything he could think of, except becoming Hokage himself, naturally. He almost exploded right then and there from happiness, resisting the urge of parade through waves, screaming his joy to the winds only because he wanted to keep his secret. It took him half an hour to calm himself down enough to continue reading. Unfortunately, I'm almost out of time. If you want to know more, you'll have to summon a firefly as explained in the scroll. Really? He checked the scroll again. It must have been one of the unrecognizable kanji. Sigh, I'll have to study, he cried in dismay. Farewell, my dear Naruto-chan. I hope you'll be happy from now on. With love, Uzumaki Kushina. Bye, Mom, I love you too, said Naruto, before deciding that he wanted a copy of this letter too. A copy as faithful to the original as he could manage. Since it was almost dinner time, having skipped lunch in his excitement, he left to the clones this task, with the order of making a perfect copy of the letter, even if it took them all the night to do it. Walking to Tezuna's house, now, there was another problem. The original scroll had a blood seal on it, and he copied it faithfully, but he had no idea on how to activate the seal on the copy. He mentally added to check out a beginning book on seals from the library, as first priority. He could not let this scroll end up in the hand of Sasuke or an enemy without at least that protection. He summoned another clone to bring secretly both scrolls in his pack, while he ate with his team. Obviously, as soon as he entered he was greeted by a screaming Sakura. Where have you been, Naruto? Because you went away I had to guard Tezuna while they finished the bridge instead of looking at Sasuke-kun. But Sakura-chan. It was only right, after all. If it wasn't for you, Sasuke-kun would have won. Cha, right. Thought inner Sakura. Naruto felt a stab in his heart. She was right, mostly. If he hadn't entered the mirrors maybe Sasuke wouldn't have become a Pinkushin, or at least not as much. But to assume so instantly that he had completely hampered Sasuke, instead of helping him. Memories of himself and Sasuke fighting together to defeat Haku flooded his brain. Sasuke's sacrifice came to mind and he realized that he really has been as much an hindrance as a help. He tried to dismiss it as usual, by trying to think that without him and his awesome skills Sasuke would have been reduced to a Pinkushin even faster, but his previous roller coaster of emotions reading his mom's letter made it impossible for him to delude himself as he usually did. He had been dead weight in that fight before Sasuke died. He unthinkingly put himself in a death trap and forced his hated teammate to save him from death, even if Haku had been too soft-hearted to kill them. His only help to Sasuke has been as additional targets for Haku to concentrate on while Sasuke did the hard work. And he had to rely on the power leaked from the seal to defeat Haku, a power he didn't want to rely upon, because the fox would die soon, if not naturally, because he would kill it. And he would learn his family jutsu to become a ninja worthy of the fourth, who put his faith on his newborn self. That would be his goal from now on. Sakura continued her tirade, not even noticing that Naruto was no longer paying attention. Kakashi however did, and even though he didn't know exactly what he was thinking, he could guess it from his body language and smiled inside. Sakura, winded from her lecture, finally stopped when Sasuke came to the table to eat, and she immediately tried to mother him, telling him of her boring day because of Naruto's laziness, and asking for dates all in a single breath. Even Kakashi was impressed. Upstairs, a clone finished packing the scrolls and transformed himself into a third scroll to guard them further against thieving Uchiha teammates. Better paranoid than scrollless. Later in the night, a clone, bringing the letters from his mother, silently slipped them inside that same pack and left the room to dispel itself silently. The voyage home was uneventful, if you discount the entire wave country thanking them and almost throwing a festival in their honor. Even if they didn't learn of it, they even named the newly finished bridge after Naruto. Fortunately, they wouldn't discover it for a long time for Kakashi's peace of mind. On the last leg of the way home, Naruto was locked in a circle trying to convince himself that he had to read all those books to become Hokage, arguing that it was too boring to do it, then slipping away into thinking that those books and his scroll would let him kill the stupid fox. Years of habits were warring against ambition, and dared he say it, justice against the fox. He was so focused on that thought that he almost collided with Sakura when they stopped at the gate for identification. As soon as they passed the gate, Kakashi turned toward the genin. "I'll report to the Hokage, but you have the next 2 days free because you did so well in the mission," and disappeared in a whirlwind of leaves. Sasuke darkened at the thought of his performance against Haku, swearing to himself that he would not lose again, but he guessed that now, with his Sharingan finally active, he would improve exponentially faster. He was sure that after a couple weeks of training with his bloodline, even an enemy like that boy would be insignificant to him. He would finally be able to catch up with that person and finally kill him. He ignored Sakura's plea for a date, as usual, and left to unpack and train. He had a brother to murder. Sakura, dejected, left without a word. Naruto, left alone at the gate, decided that he should secure the scroll. As the voice said, the original scroll and letter disappeared during the night. He actually remembered seeing them vanish in a shower of pretty colored lights, just like that flame he saw after he blew himself up. It was strange that he remembered. After all, he was sleeping while it happened. It wasn't important. Not as much as hiding the copy under a loose floorboard in his apartment, foregoing even a welcome-back bowl of ramen at Ichiraku's for half an hour more than strictly necessary to ensure it was safe. He reflected on the fact that he really should place some more traps in his apartment, now that he had something truly irreplaceable in it. Prank traps were not enough anymore for the protection of his scroll. He sighed and added something about traps to the list of the 5 books, and something about seals that he wanted to check in the library. Well, about that he could ask Iruka-sensei, too, without anyone suspecting anything. Satisfied for the moment, he let his feet guide him automatically to the really used road to Ichiraku's ramen. Ayame and Chuchi were really wonderful people, a great audience even to the most hated boy in Konoha. They laughed at the right moments, stayed focused in the most dramatic scenes, and were even appreciative of the little embellishments he added to liven up the story. Of the fact that he saved Sasuke and Kakashi single-handedly from a horrible death wasn't that much of an exaggeration, right? He was reaching the point where he was about to wipe away the mercenaries with over 1,000 clones when Iruka arrived. "Iruka-sensei!" exclaimed Naruto, happy to see the Chuunin instructor. "Hello, Naruto. How was your first C-rank mission?" It was hard, sensei." The client lied," said Naruto, in a small voice. While he didn't mind embellished stories for Ichiraku, Iruka-sensei preferred the truth. He learned very well that lesson during his stay in the academy. "Lied, and how much he lied, Naruto?" asked a worried Iruka. Since the boy looked happy, he guessed the mission was a success, so he wasn't too worried. Nonetheless, there was a really rich person who hired missing ninja to kill him, Naruto confessed. He awaited the explosion any moment. Instead, Iruka became icily calm. "What kind of ninja?" "A couple Chuunin, the demon brothers, and a Momochizabuza, the demon of the hidden Mysterious, the eyebrowless freak, and his sidekick." Iruka became very pale. "An A-rank missing nin?" Naruto could only nod. Chuchi took pity on the boy and told Iruka, "Naruto here was telling us how well he and his team did against them, Iruka-san." Iruka sighed, and ruffled Naruto's hair. "I hope none of you were seriously injured." "Sasuke and me were hit by a few senbon, but nothing a night's sleep couldn't fix," he said, downplaying a little their injuries. "Sakura-chan was completely unharmed." "Then I guess it was a good experience for what a Chuunin or Jonin usually go against in their missions," he said with a sad smile. "After all, with a higher rank there are both higher dangers and responsibilities." Naruto nodded. Then he remembered what he was thinking before. He prepared himself to tell an almost truth to Iruka, hoping he would forgive him, eventually. "Iruka-sensei, can you teach me more about traps? I need to protect my home a little more. Kakashi-sensei gave me a couple scrolls that I cannot bring with me everywhere, and my home may not be secure enough." Iruka nodded. He really felt a little sorry for Naruto's situation, but while as an academy student he could have been in trouble if he set up dangerous traps to catch thieves, as a genin he was allowed semi-sensitive materials, such as D or E-rank jutsu scrolls. Not so valuable that a genin could not repay it back even with the meager pay of D-rank missions, But still, as jutsu scroll, they were restricted from civilian use and he was allowed harmful non-lethal traps to protect them. Still, he didn't have that much free time. Naruto, I just have a couple hours in the evening free, usually, and I may need them for backlog paperwork or grading. But I can give you 2 evenings a week, starting tomorrow. However, you must promise me that you will give your maximum effort in it, or I'll stop. Thank you, Iruka-sensei. I promise you I will give everything I have. Believe it, he said, grabbing reflexively his leaf forehead protector and hurrying home, after leaving the money for the ramen. Once there, he reread his mother's letter, and tried to imagine her from her few words. He also remembered her challenge to find out his father's name. What should be its priority? Well, first to protect the scroll and the letter so seals and traps, he mused aloud, trying to not think about how much hard and boring material would be required for it. I will have to ugh, I cannot even think of it. Go to the library. He rechecked the book list. The anatomy book sounded interesting, or at least useful. Next, probably he should read that Understanding Chakra. He really hurt when Sakura told him he was an idiot for knowing so little about it. The rest should wait until he read that one. And I should study the layout of the library to get that Chuunin book later, too. At least, I hope they have it. But as he thought about it, the more likely it was that a restricted book would rather be in a restricted area, such as ANBU headquarters, the Hokage Tower Library, or somewhere as secret as the book itself. I also need a higher-level kanji dictionary. I'd better buy that. He checked his Gamachan wallet, and noted it was still pleasantly plump, even after 5 bowls of ramen. And he had yet to get his last mission's pay. Tomorrow it will be a long and boring day, he said before changing into his pajama and going to sleep. He looked at his enemy. He was fat, balding, and had a terrifying weapon in his hands. In the past he already experienced it many times, when he had to buy his academy schoolbooks. That weapon was currently in use to clean the porch of his shop. Yes, he had very bad memories of that broom. Surely it was lead-plated. However, this time he had a secret weapon against it. One he didn't have last time he dared to confront its awesome damage potential. Well, now he could henge. And he did so, entering as a random academy student, and restraining himself from making faces at the man while he selected and bought a medium and advanced kanji dictionary. After all, better safe than sorry, right? After feeling overjoyed at outsmarting the evil shopkeeper, he decided to keep the transformation up for a while. He never got to try out his endurance with his new control after the tree climbing exercise, and it may be important in his next mission, to infiltrate Konoha Library. In a standard ninja mission ranking, for anyone native of Konoha who wasn't Naruto would have rated it somewhere near the letter K. Enemy ninja probably would rate it AC since, like Naruto guessed, there were no jutsu scroll or sensitive information in it. Naruto, instead, would rate a high B rank mission for it. The one time he tried to enter it, to borrow a schoolbook, the evil broom shopkeeper wouldn't let him buy. He had been sent away with extreme prejudice. And a hand on a kunai, ready to stab him. He didn't try again until today. He tried to remember everything Iruka and his previous sensei told him about espionage missions when he entered the building. Having never been inside and since nobody ever explained to him how a library exactly worked, he nervously looked at a row of books, trying to look as if he was looking for a specific title while simultaneously trying to spy on the few people already inside the building. They say that adrenaline sometimes lets the body do incredible things if stressed enough, and he surely demonstrated it since he managed to keep under surveillance 7 different people without them noticing, an incredible feat for the clumsy, overactive genin who lived by making himself seen his mission in life. He quickly realized that most people who were looking for specific books were looking at some strange cabinets in a corner, then going with purpose toward a goal, finding their book with ease, then going to read, while people who wanted something nebulous, such as his book on seals, simply searched for the right category, then browsed the titles on display. He decided to find the seal book, as he decided yesterday, and went into the ninja section of the library. He almost gaped. There were thousands of books here, divided into subcategories. Some of these titles were interesting, and he promised himself he would take a little time to read them. They would surely help him become Hokage. He reached the miscellaneous ninja books, since there wasn't a section dedicated to seals. Probably seals were too sensitive to be kept in an open library like this. But he found an introduction to storage seals that, even if it didn't look like what he wanted, it looked really useful. Make your own exploding tags and surprise your neighbors made him almost literally drool. He loved those little exploding tags, but they weren't cheap, not at all. Dismayed in not finding about blood seals, he took those 2 books and brought them into the reading room. Even if either of them was what he needed, they were a treasure mine to Naruto, making leverage on his pranking instinct and sparking his imagination about seeding 200 exploding notes into a trap to punish Sensei's lateness. He had to make heavy use of the medium kanji dictionary, but he no longer complained for its expense. Taking copious notes from the books, he left 4 hours later when he felt the strain of the henge, and left before being discovered. After a quick lunch, he tried to make his first exploding tag. 30 tries later he managed a successful one, and 2 hours later he had 15 tags ready to be tested in a training area. He was surprised on how well they performed, almost like store-bought ones, and he thought that this branch of the ninja arts had definitely potential if results were as cool as these. Leaving a clone to craft tags in his apartment, he returned to the library using the same disguise, took again those 2 books and continued reading them until evening. He returned to his apartment to get the tags his clone made in the last few hours. After all, Irika may make him use them. Leaving the clone to continue making tags, he left for the academy building. "Naruto! Over here!" came the greeting from Irika-sensei as soon as he approached the building. He saw Irika-sensei in the practice area and joined him. He saw a few different traps already assembled. "Since your grades in trap making as well as trap detection were horrible, I'll start from the beginning. Any questions?" Naruto thought about it. It really was depressing to have to do those lessons again, but without a teacher out to ridicule him instead of teaching, he may truly learn it this time. Then he thought that Irika-sensei may help him with seals, too, or at least praise him for it. It wasn't as if storage seals and exploding tags were restricted to genin. "Can you check them, Irika-sensei? I made them this afternoon. I tried a couple of them and they worked well." Naruto passed the small paper slips to Irika, who examined them with a surprised and, he hoped, impressed expression. "These are good, Naruto. And I can see them getting better one after the other. I didn't know you were interested in seals. They are very useful in traps, you know, but at that level you should really ask your Jonin-sensei. It's his responsibility to teach you genin-level skills and above. If you manage to pass my course with good grades, I'll make a joint request to Kakashi-san." "Really?" asked Naruto, overjoyed on the thought of finally having something he could beat Sasuke at. Not that he admitted that even to himself. The next 2 hours were filled with the basics of trapping, and Naruto made incredible progress due to his extreme motivation. Irika himself could not believe it. He managed to learn more in 2 hours than he did in half his last year at the academy. Was it all due to motivation? Returning home, he saw another 50-pack of exploding tags ready to use, put them away and fell asleep, barely noticing the memories of himself making hundreds of tags, learning to make better and better ones. He still didn't notice it even the next day, when he repeated this day's events, making tags and finishing with physical and chakra training by climbing another tree while throwing kunai to a target. The 2 days' reprieve from his team came to an end and he found himself again waiting for Kakashi-sensei. Not wanting to be seen reading academy-level books by his Sakura-chan, he simply waited, after naturally asking her out and being rejected again. But instead of idly waiting, he revised mentally the steps of making the explosive tag. He had yet to make a successful storage seal. They were much harder than the tags, which were unstable by design, and required a much more firm hand. He realized his handwriting was horrible, due to very little practice in the academy, so he had to overcome that little handicap to do good seals. Nonetheless, his tags were now solidly store level. It was a wonder they were so expensive if they were so easy to make, but it was probably the time needed to make a good amount of them that inflated the price. But he could take advantage of this a little henge, and he could sell it to a shop and make a little extra pocket money if he needed it. 2 hours of waiting and Kakashi-sensei finally appeared. They did their customary useless D-rank. Naruto got mauled by Sakura for asking her out, and was ignored by the bastard, but he managed to not screw up anything. After a little team exercise, they were left free for the afternoon, where he practiced storage seals until he managed to make a working one. It could only hold something about the weight of an apple, but it was a start. This evening he had his second appointment with Irika-sensei, and got another 2 hours of trap instruction, much harder than before and much faster than 2 days ago. Evidently Irika realized his awesomeness, too. He showed him his first successful storage seal and he complimented him for it. He was so giddy that he blurted out without even realizing it his need for a blood seal to lock his personal scrolls, and to his surprise, Irika simply nodded and promised him to let him borrow a book on the argument for his next lesson in 3 days, provided he managed to perfect his storage seals in the meantime. Naturally, he worked on it almost day and night, both to make Irika proud and for the protection of his scroll, that he had not dared to pull out of its hiding place since the first night, and was waiting to be able to protect it at least with genin-level traps and the blood seal. His team meetings were ridiculous compared to Irika-sensei's instruction. The only things they did was team-building exercises and a little sparring. Even the library was more useful. He managed to find a book in the ninja section about infiltration, especially on how to falsify documents. He needed to borrow the books listed in Mom's letter, at least the 4 non-restricted ones, but the library would never let the demon take them, and if they knew he was interested in them, they would likely take them permanently off the bookshelves. Furthermore, they were restricted to genin level and above, so he couldn't just henge into anyone and just ask for them. That meant either impersonating some other genin, that could lead him into an ocean of trouble even with the old man, or a completely new identity, with a forged ID, that he could get away by explaining his circumstances to the Hokage if he ever got caught, with just a token punishment. As long as he didn't use his counterfeit identity to get material he wasn't already entitled to as genin. The book suggested that in an environment where people were familiar to the shinobi, he should use a disguise as far as the original as possible. So no one would likely associate the two of them even if he was somehow betrayed by mannerism or ingrained habits. A timid black-haired girl would be good for the disguise, but it would be hard to do, especially with his flamboyant personality. He even had to lay off the orange, he was too well known for it. Not too attractive or he would be hit on by guys that better not think about it. Leaf headband on her hips, since he always had it on the head, white and black dress, not too fancy, still to avoid male eye and naturally no whisker marks. Those were hard to get rid of, a result of Yuki in his system, he guessed. He hoped that by killing the fox they would finally go away. It took a whole week to create the disguise using his Oiroku no jutsu and a second one to learn a new set of mannerism for the girl, who Naruto named Akiko Iwasa, a genin in the reserve list with no listed jonin sensei. Complete with a medical history of a few training accidents cured by a retired civilian doctor that moved away to the farmlands with his family. He was tempted to let the old man Hokage know about it, especially because he realized his identification would not hold against something more than a civilian-level security like the library, to avoid being mistaken for an enemy ninja. But he realized that if he told the old man, he would tell Kakashi, who would tell Sakura and Sasuke just to tease him, and he would never hear the end of it. He didn't even consider that the Hokage could give that knowledge to Kakashi as sensitive information or that Kakashi could be trusted to not tell it to the rest of the team. Sometimes the fear of public humiliation is worse than the truth, and he had been betrayed once by a teacher, so he would not give ammunition to someone he wasn't sure didn't hate him. Sure, Kakashi-sensei didn't seem to hate him, but neither did Mizuki, and the way he insisted on teamwork while neglecting their personal training showed that he didn't care about them as individuals, but just as his soldiers. That or he was so incredibly lazy that made Shikamaru look like an overactive jumping monkey. He just hoped on the lazy theory. Admiring his new genin library card, Akiko brought home the first of the 5 required books, Understanding Chakra. He realized that Mom's letter may have given that order of books on purpose, so even if the anatomy book was inviting, he was now fascinated as well from Chakra, after having witnessed its versatility in seals. Reverting from the henge away from prying eyes, he returned to his apartment and moved away the book on seals that Irika lent to him, just like promised, an introduction to seals, a genin to Chuunin level introductory book on the basics of sealing. Thanks to the book, he now knew why the exploding tags were so much easier to do than the storage seals. The former were E rank and the latter was a C rank seal, and that would mean he jumped from a difficulty rated around the level of an average academy student to a high genin one. Excited from the prospect of finally making way into understanding his family legacy, he took both the dictionaries and the new book and began reading. Sakura was worried. His undesired teammate was really strange lately. A week ago he started bringing books to the team meetings and began to read while they waited for Kakashi-sensei. She was glad for the reprieve. If Naruto was reading he wasn't ogling her or pestering her for dates, or worse, making Sasuke-kun think that she may be even remotely interested in that baka. Even now she asked herself if that idiot did graduate just to spite her and get in her way, getting attention from her Sasuke-kun, and even the thought of that sparkled her rage anew, stealing his precious first kiss, even if accidentally. He must die, raged inner Sakura following that thought. She again admired Sasuke, her hands coyly under her chin, making loving eyes on the dark-haired youth, hoping against hope that he finally realized his feelings for her and got away from his shyness to reciprocate her feelings. 2 hours and a half later, Sasuke still hadn't looked at her. Naruto was still immersed in his books and her arms were hurting from her prolonged stay in that uncomfortable position. "Yo!" hailed Kakashi, as usual appearing in a swirl of leaves. "You are late!" screamed Sakura, as usual, too. Ma, you see." "Don't even start lying," interrupted Sakura, tired of hearing the same old lies. Kakashi seemed to fall into a deep depression. They left to get another D-rank mission. Sakura thought that Sasuke's skill were being wasted by doing menial chores. That was Naruto's job, but not even her could do anything about it. After such an intensive mission step up in rank for their level, there was a mandatory period of low-stress missions, unless it was wartime. But if those were low-stress missions in the Lord Hokage's mind, she couldn't fathom what high-stress missions were. That damn cat was more slippery than a soaped and buttered eel, those damn brats were a nightmare, and those dogs were bigger than her. She sometimes really wished to be as cool as her Sasuke-kun, unflinching despite everything. But at least she wasn't as much dead weight as the dead last Naruto. From what she could see during the sparring matches they sometimes did after the missions, he hadn't progressed at all since Wave, at least not in comparison with his Sasuke-kun. His Sharingan red eyes were so handsome and powerful, he creamed Naruto in even less time than usual in every match he used them. Inner Sakura completely agreed with her. Naruto was a lazy good-for-nothing, all he had for himself was an incredible stamina, but his lameness precluded his use even as a shield. Despite that, he still hadn't learned that, and he pestered her continuously for dates, and disturbed his Sasuke-kun. She'd better start working out a way to surreptitiously ask Kakashi-sensei to pawn him off to some other team and get someone useful that could work with them. And she obviously meant a boy that wouldn't pester her with dates and didn't annoy Sasuke-kun just by existing. Thinking about his graduating schoolmates, she thought that only Aburame Shino would fit the bill. He was silent, strong, and usually minded his own business. Swapping Naruto for Shino would both mean get rid of Naruto and send him to the dogs, almost literally since Shino's team is composed of Hyuga Hinata and Inuzuka Kiba. And she would gain a much better teammate from it. She decided. She would start looking into genin team regulations to see if she could manage to swap those two and see if she could arrange it somehow without bringing attention to herself. She really hoped the team meeting finished fast. Now, she had a library to get to. Naruto looked up from the Chakra book with a note of satisfaction. High on boring theoreticals, he still forced himself not only into reading the material, but in actually understand them, asking questions to Iruka-sensei when a passage was unclear and realizing how many holes were being filled in his academic education by that combined effort. In the book were also numerous simple chakra control exercises, some like little games obviously thought out to teach to young children, but he mastered them all anyway. He now knew how chakra was produced, how to efficiently mold it. He had to correct a couple bad habits even there, how using hand seals was an incredibly efficient way of rapid molding chakra, but not an indispensable one when only 2 or 3 seals were required. In fact, most academic jutsu can be used even by genin-level ninja without hand seals with enough practice, and he wanted to be able to do it. He learned of the Sharingan and the Byakugan, especially the Sharingan's ability to both see chakra and memorize hand seals, making it dangerous to do them before Sasuke, if he wanted to keep family jutsu safe from him. And Kakashi-sensei, too, but he usually used the forehead protector to keep it covered so it wasn't as much an issue with him. He also learned of the possibility of shape and nature manipulation of chakra, but both were Jonin-level skills and not included in the book. He would reread it a couple times and then Akiko would bring it back to the library, but now he returned to work on seals. He had a workable model of the blood seal and wanted to test it, and then compare it to the unactivated one on the copy he made in the likeness of the original one. His own blood opened it fine, he already checked. But now he had to find a donor to try to open it. He thought about Iruka, but he would wait the 2 days before the next lesson to ask him. And he had an idea about it. It has been too easy, really. He even thought about infiltrating the Konoha hospital as a nurse or something just to make it harder, but didn't want to harm someone by accident if he was asked to heal someone or assist a medic need. He never thought it would be so easy to find a pervert in this village, but considering Kakashi-sensei's behavior it wasn't that hard to believe. He simply had to walk to the hot springs and use his Oiroke no Jutsu before an old man with a kabuki makeup who was peeping on the women's side while giggling like a schoolgirl. He fountained so much blood that he drenched the scroll in it and still didn't open. The seal was a success. A pervert has been punished and in heaven, figuratively and almost literally, and he could finally complete the protection of his scroll. A successful day, after all. Damn brat, said Jiraiya, waking up later in a hospital bed. But even so, this event inspired him into writing. Gerard was waiting in the hot water for his lovely Helen, when suddenly he felt something. Akiko entered the library to return the book, 2 days later. He activated the blood seal in the family scroll with only a couple-minute imperfection to correct, made more because of ignorance of seals and the order of writing them than bad handwriting. He also rigged his apartment with the deadliest traps he was legally allowed to and started reading the family scroll with the help of the dictionaries. There were numerous references to the chakra circulatory system in the first quarter of it, so she was going to the counter to request the second book in his mother's list, the chakra pathways. She had to struggle hard to keep his cover when she met Sakura in the reading room, reading a large tome. Deciding that it would be too hard to keep in character before Sakura, she checked out the book and left to return home. This book was much easier to understand, because it had a lot of diagrams with the names of the various joints, channels and such. With the help of this book, he understood most of the first half of his family scroll and finally he could learn something from it. Apparently, this scroll was an introductory level to the family art, called White Jutsu. By using his bloodline ability, Stupid Fox again, he could not only heal himself and others, but also summon something called a Pyrefly, or rather a swarm of them for the higher Jutsu. About the Pyreflies, apparently they are some kind of non-sentient energy beings that simultaneously exist both here and somewhere called the Far Plane. That sounded like some sort of afterlife. The process wasn't clear on how to summon more than one, but since there were references to gates or something like that, he guessed they were explained in the Jonin book, the Celestial Gates. Apparently those things beings whatever were symbiont with chakra. Wherever there was chakra there were Pyreflies, but only the white chakra could make them visible to the naked eye. He reread the instructions to learn how to summon one of those Pyreflies and looked simple enough, even if a bit gruesome. Even so, at least he would eat well this evening. He left Konoha to go in the woods just outside the walls. There he found a torrent and fished for a while, until he caught a fish. Leaving a clone to get a few more to put in a bucket, he neared the fire and proceeded with the first step. His chakra due to the fox was completely ordinary, but the instruction required him to coat the still living fish with white chakra, so, to summon it, he cut his own palm with a kunai, and waited for his wound to close. As soon as it did, he felt the red chakra being consumed, and as it disappeared completely, he pushed all the remaining white chakra in the fish before it dispersed. Luckily, the fish was small enough. Stealing his stomach, he cut off the head of the fish, killing it instantly, and then waited. The scroll said that the white chakra would allow him to feel the separation of the soul from the body, and he had to follow it. The scroll said that the direction souls travel to go to the far plane is so completely alien to normal human experience that it was considered impossible to manage to follow it in the first try, or the second, or the 10th. About 5 minutes later, he felt it, the soul leaving the body, and tried to follow, but as the scroll said, he couldn't. It was as if he was trying to move sideways in Kakashi's road of life. If he had an inkling of higher level math, he could have guessed that it was a sort of fourth dimension. After he lost the trail, he simply cleaned the fish to eat it later. 20 fishes later, he managed to get a grip on that fake direction. Not enough to follow the soul, but enough that it didn't feel so alien anymore that his mind couldn't comprehend it. "This is really hard, it must be an awesome technique," said Naruto, eating the cooked fish. He reread the scroll to get a few more hints. Apparently after death, the soul of a dead being left through something called the Death Gate along with its chakra. Using the white chakra as bridge, he would touch the far plane barrier and allow entry to a few fireflies. The more white chakra used, the more they would come forth. After that, I really have no idea what to do after that, since the next step of the technique requires at least knowing about those gates, he said aloud, while quenching the fire with his canteen. He tried to figure out what use was this part of the technique and read a few paragraphs ahead. Fortunately, his knowledge of kanji improved tremendously after reading all those books, and he somehow understood that he could use those fireflies to congregate into something akin to a solid bunch of powerful creatures of the far plane. A clone that wouldn't disappear with a single hit. And better yet, without a single hand seal. "Cool!" he exclaimed, happy beyond measure. "I have nominated you to the Chuunin exams. These are the forms," said Kakashi, with an eye smile. Naruto thought this could be the first true reason for lateness he ever heard from his sensei. But even then, it was unlikely he had been held for 4 hours just to get 3 pieces of paper. Sakura-chan appeared to think the same thing, but didn't comment about it. She looked really worried. The bastard, instead, just like him, was really happy about the news. No, happy wasn't the right word, he looked feral. "You are free to think about it today. If you wish to participate, go to room 302 in the Academy building tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. He then disappeared. Naruto left, to find Iruka-sensei and tell him of the good news, and found him in the classroom, just after lessons. Naruto started Iruka, nodding toward the form in his hands. "Are you sure you want to do it? You could die, you know." "I'm sure, Iruka-sensei," said Naruto somberly. "Well, at least considering your progress in our lessons, at least I am sure that your trap-making and sealing skills are at a solid genin level, and while Sakura is still better than you in trapping, either of your teammates know about seals and its application in trap-making. I have talked with Kakashi, too, after he nominated your team." Iruka looked a little downtrodden after that. "He didn't look that interested in your progress, and I felt ashamed for him, really." Naruto, too, felt a little down after hearing that his own Jonin sensei was ignoring him. Was he so incompetent his Jonin sensei didn't think he could learn anything worthwhile? "Despite him, Naruto, I am proud of your incredible progress. However, there is no more I am allowed to teach you on traps without your Jonin sensei's permission. We'll have to choose another area you are behind, and I fear it will have to wait until the end of the exams. I would suggest Genjutsu detection and dispel, especially since you did all those chakra control exercises." "Thank you, Iruka-sensei. You are really the best," cried Naruto, leaving a contented Iruka behind. Naruto ran all the way to the torrent, and returned to his fishing spot, to resume his firefly summoning training. It was a pain-filled process. After all, he had to stab his hand to do it, but on the 5th fish he managed to track down that slippery soul for a couple seconds, when he suddenly felt himself drenched head to feet in water. He opened his eyes, expecting a prank or an attack, but he was perfectly dry, and alone. Completely alone. A small puff of smoke showed the place where his clone just slipped and fell into the river. How? Long rusted gears started to creak in Naruto's mind, while he tried to process what actually happened. He tried to put together a logical explanation, and the only one he could come up with was so incredible and as well so incredibly awesome that he couldn't believe it. But searching back into his memories, that theory gained more and more credit. With trembling hands he performed the seal and summoned a clone. He immediately went into the woods, recovering the fishing pole and hiding it. And when he dispersed, Naruto realized his conclusion was correct. As soon as a shadow clone dispersed, his collected information came back to him. It really rocked his world, thinking of all the books he could read while he trained, the potential for infiltration and espionage missions. He never realized what a jackpot he picked up from the Scroll of Seals until now. He could expand Akiko's cover by having her seen in public, buying groceries, making acquaintances without losing his training time. He could spy the other genin to see how they train and copy the best ideas, not their techniques. There are already 2 copycats in his team. He could play a bit with Konohamaru and his friends, whom he neglected a bit in favor of his training these days. He had a whole childhood to make up for, after all. And with this, his worth to the team multiplied 1,000-fold as a scout. Beat that, bastard! With a face-splitting grin, he summoned 20 clones. Since to perform the summoning training he needed to hurt himself, only the original could perform it, but he sent the others to fish, to the library, to Konohamaru and to shop as Akiko like he thought just moments ago. And to a group of 5 clones he ordered to search the foreign genin underhenge to scout out the competition. He really was a little ashamed in not noticing this sooner. He could have done tons of training in time for the exam. But he would still pass them. They will not stop Uzumaki Naruto from becoming Hokage. With renewed energy he cleaned the fish, took the next one from the bucket, and continued his training. That night, Naruto was ecstatic. He still was a long way from reaching the far plane from that damned fish, but his clones collected a ton of useful information. He saw all the other rookie genin teams, and Team 8 was still training. They were good, had a splendid teamwork, light years above theirs. Each of them individually was better than him, and obviously better than Sakura, and had awesome clan jutsu. From what he discovered about the Aburame clan, he guessed Shino could easily beat Sasuke, too, unless Shino greatly underestimated the bastard's fire jutsu. Team 10 was lazing about in a restaurant, so he learned very little about them. He also scouted a few foreign teams, but none actually trained where he could see it undetected. Pity. Another Konoha genin team he shivered at the memory. Green spandex, living eyebrows and a sunset genjutsu was all he could remember before the clone dispersed himself from the trauma. However, he saw that eyebrows kid train like mad before that traumatic experience. If they encountered that boy, they would better avoid him. Konohamaru and his 2 friends Udan and Moegi were ecstatic to have him for an entire afternoon playing ninja. He had to be careful of not being hit, but it was good reflex training even if they were just academy students. Akiko borrowed both Basic Guide to the Elements and a Basic Guide to the Human Body for the dedicated ninja, and 2 clones read it from front to cover twice. The anatomy book would need a few more rereads to remember all those hard names of all those body parts in a human body, but the Guide to the Elements was a really basic book, which only explained the relation of the 5 elements and their good and bad points. It also touched briefly about the bloodline elements, like wood and ice, being a combination of 2 different elements and with different strength and weaknesses than their components. He planned to send Akiko tomorrow to buy a chakra card to see his own elemental affinity. And while he was at it, he could try the same with his white chakra and the fox Yuki for curiosity's sake. Even if elemental chakra conversion training was a Jonin level skill, knowing his element would mean knowing which elemental jutsu class he would learn the easiest. He checked himself on the mirror. His alarm clock read 8:30 and he was finishing storing food, weapons and tools into scrolls. He stored also books on edible plants and animals since he hadn't had time to study it. Bandages, splints and mobile casts filched from the hospital. About 400 exploding tag, 10 soldier and 10 blood replenishing pills, exchanged by Akiko, naturally, for about 600 of his best exploding tags. Clone labor was really useful. He contemplated buying a weapon too, but using it while completely unskilled in its use was probably worse than being unarmed. Kunai and shuriken would have to suffice. He added a few extra empty scrolls and writing instruments to write seals with as an afterthought. He left his home ready to take on the world. Team 7 arrived at the academy building 20 minutes before the designated time. Naruto decided to not embarrass himself this time, at least not before foreign ninja. After all, he can always ask Sakura out as soon as they finish the test, and she will be surely more agreeable to it after they pass. Unfortunately, Sakura-chan still tried to woo the bastard. At least he didn't make a scene like Sakura-chan would have done if he tried to ask her out. If something must be said for the bastard, is that he treasures his public image. As a dark brooder sociopath, but an image nonetheless. Ah well. Sakura-chan will soon realize that the bastard is probably completely uninterested in her, thought Naruto, entering the building. Going to the 2nd floor, they saw a lot of genin crowding a door. The door plate read 302. I may be lame at genjutsu, but even I noticed we are just on the 2nd floor. But maybe we of the Leaf have an unfair advantage. I know this building inside out, for all my pranks and years in these classrooms. Naruto didn't put a lot of thought to the little scene unfolding before his eyes with Sakura-chan and the bastard because he saw the same kid who almost mentally scarred him yesterday. Trying to remove that image again from his memory, he followed his team upstairs. However, Fuzzy Eyebrows, whose true name was Rock Lee, continued to haunt his memories by following them. Luckily, he wanted the Uchiha. He could keep him, too, with a nice ribbon to it, as long as he didn't hug that other guy again. When Fuzzy Eyebrows then blew a kiss towards Sakura, I really pitied her, even if she put him down even more harshly than she does me, without the bodily harm though. Even then, Naruto watched closely the match between Lee and the bastard, and was satisfied that his first impression of the kid was correct. Fuzzy Eyebrows was a taijutsu wizard and could wipe the floor of all three of them even put together by playing to his strength. Not a good thought, that. Then the nightmare returned. Guy, that was the name of Super Fuzzy Eyebrows, the other half of the nightmarish spandex duo, appeared just in time to save the bastard's neck. They had the weirdest mentor-slash-pupil relationship he ever thought possible. Sasuke and Sakura were aghast at the image, and for the first time since Wave, even Naruto thought of his black-haired teammate with pity. Seeing that scene for the second time was a little less horrifying than the first, and he had the option of virtual suicide to save his sanity. Still, of common silent accord, the best teamwork they ever demonstrated, each of them proceeded with their own method of memory suppression and agreed to never speak of it to anyone for as long as they lived. After passing Kakashi-sensei, Team 7 entered the exam room, just to be ambushed. "Sasuke-kun!" yelled a girl's voice, throwing herself at the target of her affection. "I miss you!" "Ino pig! Get off, Sasuke-kun!" replied Sakura, enraged. Naruto ignored the sideshow, wishing the bastard would finally choose Ino or any other fangirl so that Sakura could be free to date him. "So you two have been entered here, so troublesome," said the lazy Shikamaru. Chuji, beside him, was eating a pack of chips. Naruto looked for a moment at Shikamaru. Naruto knew the Nara was very smart. Much more than anyone he knew, actually, and if he had any idea. "Shikamaru? Have you any idea about the exam?" asked Naruto. Shikamaru looked around for a bit. "Considering the layout and the room we are in, I would say it's a written exam of some kind." Naruto froze. "A WW written exam?" Naruto's brain went on an overdrive, his mind furiously trying to find a way around it. "No choice, I'll have to cheat. I can use the shadow clones, but first I must test something out." He slipped away silently as soon as Shikamaru's attention was diverted by the arrival of Team 8. He created a clone to hear anything they would tell each other and fled to the bathroom. He created 2 new clones, one of them with the order of thinking a number, then disperse itself. As soon as it did, he received its memory of the number 14. The other clone too replied that same number aloud. "I'm lucky, the memory share works towards other clones too." He immediately summoned 30 clones, which transformed into random people and ran towards the library. One of them transformed itself into a pin. The original quickly put it on in a place where it could see a paper before it. Returning toward the test room, he slipped back inside during the attack of the sound genin and replaced the clone just as the proctors entered the room. Looking at the questions, Naruto thanked every divinity he ever heard of for Shikamaru's brain. Without his deduction, he would be panicking right now. These questions are impossible. How can they expect us to be able to get them right? After about 5 minutes, he covered his chest around the pin to hide the small puff of smoke of his pin clone dispersing, and not so casually giving the questions it memorized to his clones in the library to start their research. The proctors didn't seem to have noticed, so far it's good. Now it's the library guy's turn. He tried to look thoughtful, and looked again at the blackboard. "Those rules are a little fishy. Irika-sensei would throw me out if he caught me cheating, not just a 2-point reduction. So they want us to cheat. Thanks again, Shika. I'll buy you ramen as soon as I can." It took about 20 minutes for the first library clone to disperse. He learned that the clones divided themselves into 9 groups of 3, each group to research a single question, with the remaining 2 to supervise and double-check the answers. At the end of the 45 minutes, Naruto managed to get only 6 of the 9 answers, but it would be plenty to pass, considering who his teammates were. A few minutes later, Marino Ibiki, the head examiner, spoke up. "Now it's time for the 10th question, but before hearing it, there are a couple extra rules about it." Murmuring was heard among the room. "The first is a desperation rule. You'll have to decide whether or not to answer this question." A sand girl jumped out asking, "What do you mean, decide to whether answer or not? What would happen if we don't?" "Simple," said Ibiki with a stony face. "Your points will immediately drop to 0, and you'll fail, along with your team." A couple guys then angrily asked, "So what is the point of asking? We'll certainly want to answer it." "Ah, but there is the other rule to keep in consideration." This time no one interrupted. "If you decide to try to answer the 10th question and fail, you'll lose the right to ever participate in another Chuunin selection exam." How can there be such an absurd rule? There are people here who took more than an exam, roared Kiba. With a sinister laugh, the head proctor calmly said, "You have been unlucky. This year I make the rules. But I'm giving you the possibility of retiring and return the next time. Those who don't have the gut to answer the question can try in 6 months in the next exam, or even next year." Naruto was enraged. Banned from the Chuunin exams for life? Is he out of his mind? Sakura, meanwhile, was smirking. Since she had just spent a week reading and rereading rules and regulations, she knew it was a bluff. An incredibly and artful bluff, very convincing, too. He must be a professional. She looked towards Sasuke and she saw him completely determined and ready for anything. He certainly would not drop out. She then looked at Naruto. She really thought he would have panicked during the whole exam, but every time she looked at him he was relaxed. She caught him even purposefully writing in his paper. Even if she had no idea how, she was sure Naruto had managed to cheat without being caught. There was absolutely no way that Empty Head could solve any of these questions by himself. And with his pig-headedness, he would not drop out either. This first test was in their pocket. Ibiki continued to put pressure after pressure on the assembled genin. Naruto was still incensed, but restrained himself. It would be a waste to get himself expelled after all that hard work cheating. He even stopped Hinata, who was sitting right beside him, from giving up by looking in her eyes and letting her see his determination. She blushed from head to neck, but she managed to not faint, and not so casually forgot everything about retiring. After about 15 minutes in a sea of dropouts, Ibiki shocked most of the remaining genin by telling them that they passed the first test, explaining how information sometimes may be more valuable than a life, and that a squad leader had to have a strong decision-making ability. At that point, a crazy girl threw himself into the room, crashing the window, hanging a poster with her name with kunai thrown to the ceiling, and presented herself as Mitarashi Enko, second examiner. The first thing Sakura thought seeing her was that she was strongly reminded of Naruto. The hyper-examiner led the genin through Konoha, outside the walls and finally to a forest enclosed in a high fence with a lot of closed gates to bar easy access. Or probably escape of whatever was inside, due to the examiner's welcome speech presenting it as the forest of death. Naruto tried to pay attention to the scary examiner lady, really tried, but behind him, there was someone that felt somewhat wrong, but he had absolutely no idea how or why. He only knew that this insight came to him through those minute amounts of white chakra that still lingered after yesterday's training with the fish. He wished again for the death of that stupid fox, so he could explore his heritage as it deserved. His distraction, however, cost him, because the examiner singled him out and threw a kunai, grazing his cheek and then creepily licking his blood, while telling him that guys like him were the first to die. And the guy who gave him the wrongness vibes held out her kunai with his tongue. A honest-to-God meter-long tongue. If that didn't deserve the freak waves he felt from the genin, nothing did. Still dazed, he accepted the form to sign and went with his teammates to collect their scroll. "I'll keep it," said Sasuke, pocketing their heaven scroll while they walked toward the gate number 12. While they were alone, with just a Chuunin examiner to bar the gate until the prescribed time, Sakura turned to Naruto. "How did you cheat in the written exam? I know those questions were above you, but I've seen you write." Sasuke paid attention too. After all, he too was curious about it. "Yesterday I discovered a feature of the shadow clone jutsu that I had never noticed before," started Naruto. "When a shadow clone vanishes, whatever it learned gets back to the original. Not only that, just before the test I verified that the information goes to all the other still existing clones, too." "How could you not know, though? Didn't you read the Forbidden Scroll to learn it?" asked Sasuke, envious of the fact that even for a little he has been allowed to read such a collection of powerful jutsu. "I didn't have that much time to read it," he said, trying to cover the fact that at the time he couldn't read most of the kanji making up the finer explanations. "I thought I had very little time, so I just read how to perform it and practiced. I think Kakashi-sensei assumed I read it too, because he never told me about it, and before Wave I only used that technique in battle." Sakura at that point asked, "And after Wave?" Naruto sighed and pulled out his explosive tags and scrolls. Even if it pained to share the result of his hard work with the bastard, his survival in this exam relied too much on teamwork. "I found a couple books on sealing and I asked Irika-sensei for help. I used clones as additional manpower to make a few hundreds of exploding tags while I trained. I made about 1,000 of these babies, but I swapped most of them at a ninja supply store for these." He distributed 3 soldier pills and 3 blood replenishing pills to each of his teammates, as well as about 100 tags. "In this scroll, pointing the side of his backpack, I have sealed a few first aid material, bandages, mobile casts, and a couple generic used medicines. I had very little of it, but I thought it could be handy. This other scroll, instead, has a few camping supplies. No tent, unfortunately, it's too heavy and bulky for the current level of my storage seals, but I have taken my bedsheets to build a makeshift one if needed. This last one has a few dozen of my extra kunai to build traps with. They are not blood-coated, Just use a drip of chakra on the seal and it will release the content. Sakura was actually impressed, but tried to not show it, else the blonde start asking for dates. Sasuke instead was glad that for once the dobe was not being dead weight. Actually learned something that could be of use to him but that he wouldn't personally bother with, and if what he said about the clones was true then he could use him to scout ahead, avoid traps and ambushes and conserve chakra for worthy fights. Sakura then asked, about the first exam? Trying to return to the original topic. Ah yes. I asked Shikamaru what he thought the first exam would be and he correctly guessed it being a paper test. Since I know I suck at them, I planned on cheating from the beginning. Sakura palmed her face. Of all the things, Naruto managed to do exactly what the examiners wanted him to just because he already knew he would fail any kind of paper test. I created a couple dozen of clones, had one henge into a pin that I fixed on my clothes, sent the others henged as random people to the library and awaited the test. After a few minutes to await for my pin clone to memorize the question, I hid it and let it disperse, covering the smoke and noise. Since it would have been the only sign of me cheating in the whole exam, it was worth the eventual 2 points, but none of the proctors wrote anything around that moment, so I guess it went unnoticed. And at the library your clones got the question, but how did you get the answers? Surely you couldn't ask the people in there? Asked Sakura. A shadow clone is a really good copy of me, Sakura-chan. It copies my memories, mind and personality. In practice I had 3 copies of me to each question, giving me something like 2 hours to get each answer right, with complete access to research material. Even then, I only got 6 of them, they were really hard. Sakura again was impressed with the fact that he even managed to get one of those questions in 2 hours, consulting materials or not. She clearly underestimated, a little, his intelligence. Sasuke instead was forming a new plan for this exam. With the dobe able to create an army of cannon fodder, he could be free to challenge the good fighters to prove himself. He pocketed the exploding tags after a brief check, and he noted that they looked good. He was no expert on seals, but having seen hundreds of these tags in his training he knew how to distinguish a good one from a failure or a dud. All of these were rather good, no wonder the shopkeeper has been willing to trade them for the pills. The dobe was becoming really interesting. Perhaps, unlike the fangirl, he could be eventually trained to become a worthy rival to push himself to an even higher level. He suppressed a sigh, since it would have to wait until the end of the exam. He could still hope the last part consisted in individual matches though. Alright, change of plans? Naruto, you said you learned seals? Do you have a spare scroll? Naruto took out his writing implements and a blank scroll. Sasuke immediately started to copy the appearance of the Heaven Scroll in the empty one and gave the completed fake one to Sakura, checking it with the help of his Sharingan. It was a perfect copy, if you cannot see chakra, naturally. Naruto smirked, thinking of it as the first prank he had ever seen performed by the Uchiha. Pass it here, Sakura. I have a little addition in mind, said Naruto, unsealing about 40 kunai from his scrolls. Don't ruin it, Dobe, said Sasuke, but he wasn't too worried. Naruto made a face to Sasuke, but as soon as he received the scroll, he became serious and began writing a complex array of seals on the interior of the fake Heaven Scroll, then a small quick one on each of the 40 kunai. Finally he placed them over the scroll seal, then gathered a little bit of chakra in a precise order in the seal and the multipurpose ninja knives vanished in a small cloud of smoke. Now it's a little surprise packet. It primes like an explosive tag, even when closed, and it will explode exactly 4 seconds later, throwing all 40 kunai in all directions for added range damage. It's a C-rank trap seal and he gave Sakura the scroll back. It will make no fire or smoke when active, so be careful. And remember, if we are ever pressed to release a scroll, give them that, he said to Sakura with a smirk. Sakura nodded and Sasuke smirked. Sasuke then turned to Naruto. Can we seal away our scroll? Looking at his storage scrolls. Naruto tiredly shook his head. No, it's above my level to seal something that itself contains seals, and we cannot open it to verify if there are any inside. Sasuke accepted it, and pocketed the true Heaven Scroll. Considering the words of the examiner, it's likely, said Sasuke, not bothering to tell them that he could clearly see the chakra in the original scroll with his Sharingan. He then looked at the clock. Less than a minute to the start. Prepare yourselves, it's time. Naruto, as soon as we get in I want a scouting perimeter. As many as you can spare from the fighting and at least 100 meters ahead of us at any time, preferably hinged into the 3 of us. Sakura, your first priority is checking the environment for any genjutsu. Leave the direct fighting to Naruto and me and pester them with traps or ranged weapon. Make use of the tags too, we have more than enough to last all 5 days. Sasuke felt satisfied that his teammates nodded and obeyed his orders, while the Chuunin at the gate opened it and let them inside. Naruto raised his hand abruptly. There is a single Reinin that is following one of the decoy squads, in that direction. He pointed on their left. I've not seen his teammates. I have no idea if he has the scroll or not. Sasuke nodded. Let's get him. We can trade him for the scroll if he hasn't one. Sakura was a little apprehensive at fighting another ninja, but it was imperative to get that second scroll or they would fail. She hardened her resolve and nodded, then they followed Naruto toward the decoys. The fake group stopped, to apparently discuss how to reach the tower, while the true Team 7 positioned to do a counter-ambush to the lone nin. As Naruto said, they couldn't see his scroll, but he had plenty of covered area to hide it. Activating his Sharingan, Sasuke threw a score of shuriken-delivered wires to tie the ninja to the tree he was currently spying from, catching him completely by surprise. The decoys smirked and left the area, to search for the prisoner's teammates. Sasuke quickly searched the genin and found the scroll. Unfortunately, it was another heaven scroll. What a pity, said Naruto, pocketing the new scroll that Sasuke was passing him. While they were bounding away from the area they captured the rain nin in. It's still one more team that won't pass the exam if we hold on it, said Sasuke. Suddenly Naruto froze, and began yelling, an enemy attack! My clones are being And a humongous blast of wind sent him away, while Sakura and Sasuke had the time to grab a tree trunk and managed to stay in place only thanks of their chakra. Kunai ready, they awaited for a few moments, then they saw Naruto returning to them, a little ruffled, but almost unharmed. Before he could get near though, Sasuke got on his guard and asked, what did you give me before entering the forest? Naruto looked a little confused, but said, I gave you our scroll, what else? Sakura and Sasuke immediately attacked, but the fake Naruto avoided them easily. Good, Sasuke-kun, I see you managed to see through my disguise. Naruto threw several expletives while flying through the air, and landed right in front of the biggest snake he had ever seen. It's huge, he said, but then Snake caught him from behind, with its tail that was burrowing underground while he was gaping. A couple seconds later he found himself swallowed whole. A wave of the most horrifying killing intent he could imagine was paralyzing them in the spot. He could literally see his death delivered by that grass ninja. With a supreme effort of will, he managed to break out of the fear by canceling it with pain and managed to save himself and Sakura from the kunai thrown by the enemy ninja. Sakura tried to ask him if he was alright, but Sasuke stopped her before she could speak up. It has been a long time from the last time he has been so scared since his brother. And to even taunt them she swallowed the earth scroll in its possession. They had no choice but to escape. That freak was too damn strong. Blasting out from the snake with the creative use of the shadow clones, Naruto ran in the direction the blast of wind came from, until he saw Sasuke and Sakura stalked by the creepy tongue guy that felt weird before the start of the exam. Only he was slithering around a tree branch like a snake. Talk about creepy. Creating 5 clones and ordering them to provide cover fire, he threw a bundle of projectiles on the path of the ninja, before reaching his teammates. Sasuke was still shaken, and yelled to Naruto, Naruto, you must flee. There is an abyss between him and us. The grass ninja laughed, with the creepiest laugh he ever heard. Kukukuka. Good, Sasuke-kun, you are learning a prey must try to flee from the predator. Then, Sasuke deactivated his Sharingan, and told Sakura. Sakura, give him the scroll. We can't beat him. Sakura, despite knowing which scroll he was talking about, yelled, but Sasuke-kun. Sasuke had no idea if Sakura was simply acting or not. In his panic to escape he simply grabbed the trap scroll, primed it quickly and threw it to the grass nin. Kukukukuku. I see, you offer another prey to the predator in the hope it will find it more alluring. He caught the scroll in one hand, smiling. 2 seconds after he caught it, it exploded, raining kunai, while Sasuke, Sakura and Naruto fled with all their might. Sasuke knew that a ninja of that level wasn't likely to be dead after such a simple trap, but added with the fact that Naruto spammed the area with clones in their likeness increased their chance for survival significantly. That he basically owed this chance to escape to the dobe never touched his mind. However, his escape lasted only a few minutes. A giant snake bigger than the one who swallowed Naruto blocked his way, showing a singed but otherwise healthy ninja who now had a sound headband. Kukukuku, very good, Sasuke-kun, that has really been entertaining, but now I want to see what you are able to do. And then jumped in his direction. Sasuke found himself alone. Evidently in his panic he joined 2 clones instead of the true Sakura and Naruto. And they have been destroyed by the amazing ninja, who surely as he was there, it was not a genin. He would have to fend for himself for a little while. Swallowing his panic he reactivated the Sharingan and fought with everything he had, in the hope to survive for a little longer. Naruto and Sakura managed to reach Sasuke only after the grass or rather sound nin released his fangs from Sasuke's neck. Naruto was petrified by fear, which gave way to an incredible rage at seeing his teammate in that condition. Red chakra flooded his system, consuming his body but giving him incredible power. The sound nin immediately recognized the source of his power, and toyed a little with the container of the 9-tailed fox, but was a little disappointed. While he had plenty of power, he was a little more than a berserker, completely unfit to be amongst his elite soldiers. However, this power could be a problem in the incoming invasion, so he caught Naruto in the neck using just his tongue and proceeded to place a 5-element seal on him, throwing him away like garbage as soon as he was done. Fortunately, Sakura managed to save his life by pinning his shirt to a tree with a thrown kunai. Kukukuku, that's been really fun. My name is Orochimaru, little girl. Tell Sasuke that if he wants more of the power I just gave him, he will have to come to me. He vanished in the ground after that, and Sakura was feeling out of her depth. Quickly checking the status of his two teammates, he realized that while Naruto had no visible injuries despite having seen him get a through beating, Sasuke was feverish and something black was forming in his neck, some kind of seal. Remembering Naruto medical and camping supplies, she quickly found a hiding place and built an emergency refuge. The first aid supplies in the scroll were very few, but at least there were a couple medicines to lower a fever. Realizing that this would be a very long day, she prepared to stand guard as long as it was needed. Gathering all their weapons, including Naruto remaining extra kunai, she began rigging trap after trap. Naruto awoke in a sewer. It was probably the strangest place he awoke ever. "Hello, Naruto-chan," said a feminine voice. He recognized it. It was that mysterious voice. The one that gave him his family's scroll. He looked around, frantically, until his eyes fixed on that strange ball of multicolored light, just like in Wave. What are you?" he asked the flame. "What you are looking at is a firefly. I'm simply using it to communicate with you, Naruto-chan." So this is a firefly?" he asked, curious. He admired it, again, it was surely pretty to watch. He guessed it got the name firefly because it looked like a flaming firefly, with a multicolored flame, at least. "You still haven't realized it, right?" What?" As the scroll said, fireflies exist simultaneously both on the physical plane and the far plane, the land of the dead. So someone with our bloodline can use a firefly to communicate from and to the far plane. A horrible suspect flooded his mind. "Are you?" "Yes, you finally seem to have got it, Naruto-chan. I am Uzumaki Kushina and I was your mother." "Mom?" he said, not able to keep his eyes from watering. "I'm really sorry, Naruto-chan. Your father is, too, for leaving you all alone all this time. However, I think you know who we have to thank for our separation." Can I talk to him, too?" asked Naruto, forgetting the little detail that he still had to discover his identity. "I'm sorry, Naruto-chan. Only someone with the white chakra bloodline can communicate through fireflies. I can relay messages, though, but he will know everything we talked about as soon as we finish." "But I thought the fox was blocking my bloodline." "He is. Remember what happened to you while you were awake?" He remembered the battle with the tongue freak, the Yuki. "My body is currently purging the Yuki, isn't it?" "Right on the first, Naruto-chan." Where are we?" "This is the seal, Naruto-chan. You are here just with your mind and you are currently unconscious. We are here because this is a perfect opportunity to teach you how to speed up the death of the fox." "Really?" He looked around. It was fitting that something built to house that stupid fox resembled a sewer. The monster didn't deserve any better. "Yes. Look at those pipes." The firefly hovered toward the pipes in the ceiling. "The white ones are your chakra, full of the power of your bloodline. The red ones come from the fox. Come with me, and we'll see their origin." Following the firefly, they quickly reached an immense room. Within it they could see a likewise enormous prison kept closed by a slip of paper with the word seal on it. On the other side, there was a giant fox. Its fur was flaking and diseased-looking and had just 3 tails left. It was unconscious, too. "So, now it is the Sanbai no Kitsune?" Naruto said with a smirk. "Well, you could call it that," said Kushina, and Naruto could imagine her smile. "However, let's not disturb it. If it rouses up it could become unpleasant. Let's go to the really important place." Naruto followed the firefly again, following the pipes in the ceiling, until he reached another big room. This room had what looked like a house heating system. The 2 pipes converged into a big something black and a blue pipe left toward the darkness. Each pipe had a valve of some kind and the black box had a few control levers and dials. "This is the place where the seal mixes Yuki with white chakra. The seal was supposed to be under maintenance at least once every 2 years, to accommodate your increased chakra capacity. Unfortunately, no one living knows that the efficiency of the seal could deteriorate with time." The firefly hovered around, showing him each control, lever or dial as she named them. "This is the place that has just been sealed thanks to your opponent," said Kushina, hovering over a paper labeled 5-element seal over a red button named emergency. "Sealed? That tongue freak put another seal on me?" "Yes, Naruto-chan. This is the adrenaline safety feature that allows a controlled burst of Yuki to flow into your body if you perceive a deadly danger. You'll degenerate into a berserker, but you'll be much stronger, just like I wrote in the letter. Evidently your enemy was a very powerful ninja." "I'll say, now what do these do?" indicating all the controls. The valves on the pipes regulate the amount of the relevant chakra allowed in the mixing chamber. This one, instead, the amount of yuki released on your system. I strongly suggest to leave that one alone unless you want to have more foxy accessories than the whisker marks. Those extra accessories would still disappear, but in a few years, after the death of the fox. Its original design made it so that the default yuki absorption rate was in the safe side of the limit between temporary alteration to the vessel and semi-permanent ones. Temporary alteration would reverse in a few weeks after the final death of the prisoner. Semi-permanent ones would require years to reverse. And if you really exaggerate, you may end up with completely permanent alterations. You would still be human, because they would all be purely cosmetic changes even if you gained claws or similar things, but no one would believe you without extensive medical exams. Naruto shivered at the idea of being a medical lab specimen for the curiosity of some doctor. Now what you should do is to use this style to keep the rate of white chakra to yuki around the 1.5 value. Naruto looked at the current setting. It currently read 0.205. What the? Yes, it was a good setting for a newborn, having little chakra and needing most of it to grow up. But I'm no longer a newborn. Right. You have a lot more chakra now. Beware though. Putting this setting back to the nominal value will considerably reduce your chakra regeneration rate, because much more of the chakra generated by your body is going in here to kill the fox. Hey, wait a moment. If not all my generated chakra is used to kill the fox, why does all of it becomes ordinary chakra? The mixer absorbs the properties of the leftover white chakra to power itself. Note that all your chakra flows through it. The firefly hovered toward the incoming pipes. How long would it take to finish the fox if I set it back to the nominal value? Asked Naruto. The firefly hovered over a couple of gauges, then replied. Around half a year maximum. Naruto smiled. It was looking good. Can I place it even higher than that? Oh, why yes, but if it gets any higher than 5.0, your body will not receive enough chakra to live, much less move or perform jutsu. What do you have in mind? I was thinking of leaving at nominal value for most of the day, and change it around 3.0 during the night. The firefly hovered for a few minutes in complete silence. I asked my great-grandfather about it. Luckily, he was still around. He said it's an innovative way of using the seal, since no one has been that old still having its prisoner. All the demons previously killed that way by our clan were much weaker than the 9 tails, and the seals were properly maintained. If you can access this room whenever you wish to, feel free to do as you plan. Naruto nodded. The days of the fox were numbered now. Since you are here, what are the celestial gates? I seem to remember having put a challenge to get the book yourself in the letter, Naruto-chan, she said in a taunting voice. Oh, shut up, Mom, he said, not really angry. He heard his mom laugh, and he tried to memorize it. He may not get another opportunity. Oh, well. Remember this, once you master the scroll I left you, I'll give you the next one. Now it's time for you to wake up, you could still be in danger, I cannot see the outside world. And remember that once you learn to summon fireflies in the waking world, we'll be able to talk again. Hearing that, his motivation to master all the contents of the scroll increased 100-fold. And another piece of advice, since you have to wound yourself to do the main exercise, try to give a very good look at how your white chakra heals you. It's a hint for the first of the white jutsu, Naruto-chan. Naruto smiled. Now go. And goodbye, Naruto-chan. Goodbye, Mom. He turned around and ran toward the exit. And awoke to the scene of Team Guy and Team 10 leaving the area, wondering for a minute why did it look like a war zone, all riddled with still smoking craters and riddled with kunai. Then he remembered all the exploding tags he gave them. Sasuke and Sakura were looking around and Sakura had an earth scroll in her hand. He checked himself and found the Rain Team Heaven scroll still in its place. All they had to do was to reach the tower. Piece of cake. Okay, maybe it wasn't that simple. Sasuke had gotten strange. He kept feeling weak at random moments and Sakura could not keep her eyes off him. He could swear she slept with her eyes open and fixed on him in her first 12 hours of rest. Well, maybe it was a bit of an exaggeration, but surely she was smothering him. His newly reduced chakra regeneration could be felt when he used the shadow clones, but it was tolerable. He still had the soldier pills if things got dicey. He managed to get back to the seal whenever he wished by meditating, similar to how he searched for the far plane, so he started the fox extermination regime, he told his mother. Away from the eyes of his team, he also practiced the fish killing exercise, with 2 fish at once, to do it faster. Naturally, he killed them at different times. Now he regularly managed to follow those fish for about 10 seconds. Apparently not enough yet. After 2 days of Sasuke and Naruto being unconscious and another 2 to let Sakura and Sasuke recover, they were on their last day to get to the tower. He had already seeded the area with clones, to find a safe route, when he suddenly groaned. Do you know there's that rain guy of the first day, and his two friends, and they got tricked again by a decoy team. We don't have time for those losers. If they got caught twice with the same trick, they are too weak to pass this exam, and they no longer have the scroll," said Sasuke. "Ignore them and let's get to the tower." Naruto nodded, smirked a bit, created and dispersed a clone with the orders and left. They reached the tower 2 hours later without any problems. What are they doing?" said the first of the Rainin to the second. "I have no idea. It seems they are playing a card game," said the third. It looks like strip poker," the pink-haired one just yelled in frustration and removed her jacket. "Do we attack? Or do we wait until?" "We'll wait to see if the girl continues to lose." "Agreed." "Agreed." Stupid perverts, thought the clone hidden behind them. "Iruka-sensei!" yelled Naruto, as soon as the smoke from the 2 scrolls dissipated. "Hello, Naruto. I wanted to congratulate all of you personally for getting past the second part of the exam." All 3 of the genin looked a little smug at those words. "Well, since I'm here, I am supposed to explain the meaning of that poem." He looked at Naruto, and decided to use the super short explanation instead of the standard one. "Well, it can be really condensed this way. If your body is weak, train. If your mind is weak, study. Only from a sound body and a sound mind you can realize your potential and succeed in any mission. It is the Chuunin motto written by the third Hokage." Sakura and Sasuke nodded. Naruto looked a little pensive, then nodded too. Naruto, meanwhile, was thinking how much that poem was true. Since he began really studying thanks to his family's scroll, he became much stronger even if he didn't do as much physical training as before. Using shadow clones to study while he trained would let him get the absolutely best results. And he still had to verify which kind of training would benefit from the memory sharing thing, too. "So, Iruka-sensei," started Sakura, "was it you who taught to Naruto all those seals?" "No, Sakura, I just gave him a book. I'm not allowed to train genin level skills without your superior's permission, Kakashi, for you 3. My lesson to Naruto were remedial academic level ones." Naruto looked mortified by Iruka's words, but they were still true and wouldn't arouse favoritism calls against him or Kakashi. Sakura nodded, and realized that unlike Naruto, Iruka could not help her. She was the top kunoichi at the academy, after all, so all the skill he could learn from him were skills he would not be allowed to teach her without Kakashi's permission. She resolved to talk soon to her teacher about it. Even with Naruto's entire explosive arsenal and her repertoire of traps, she barely slowed down those sound genin that wanted Sasuke-kun's life. If it wasn't for Lee, Team 7 would probably be no more. Fashion sense apart, Lee was incredibly strong, being able to beat even Sasuke-kun, and despite that he was defeated by 2 of those ninja. She touched her now shortened hair. Her own battle with the sound girl demonstrated her how inferior she was compared to the other kunoichi. She was weak. The poem was right. She had a weak body, but didn't train. Naruto had a weak mind, but he started studying and took remedial lessons to cover up his slacking off during his academy days. And he has improved tremendously. His fight with Orochimaru was the best proof. Sasuke already had a strong body and a strong mind, and he was the strongest in the team. She had to gain back the lost ground. Naruto idly walked around the interior of the tower, waiting the remaining half-day until the official end of the second part of the exam, and checked out his hands for a little while. Despite cutting himself so many times daily, there was not a single scar in them. Looking closer, he could feel a decent amount of white chakra in them, still, and he wondered. Finding a quiet place, he sat in a lotus position and started examining his own chakra, and found out that there was a lot of white chakra residual in his body and tried to pinpoint the source. Slipping in a deep meditation, he entered the seal and hurriedly went to check the mixing chamber. He met a firefly there, floating around the pipes. "Ah, right, the scrolls said they lived in the chakra, even mine." He looked at the lone firefly, almost expecting to hear his mother's voice, but he realized that unlike the other times he would have to call her, somehow. "Mom?" he asked in the direction of the firefly. No answer, the firefly simply floated around the pipe aimlessly. He tried again a few more times, and realized that this wasn't the right way to call her. "When I talk to Mom through those things, I always hear them inside my head," he mused aloud. "And I need the white chakra to communicate." Concentrating on the feeling of the white chakra inside him, he called out with his mind. "Mom?" It took 2 more tries, until the firefly answered. "Naruto-chan, what happened?" Naruto was elated for his success. "I just found out that I still have residuals of white chakra in my system, and came here to check if something was wrong with the seal. I saw the firefly and called you, to help me check." The firefly, taken over by Kushina, started examining the controls. Naruto tried too, but he had no true knowledge of all those dials and levers. "I think this is good, Naruto-chan. Apparently, you're putting such a high mixing rate during the night allows the mixing seal to get plenty of power, so some white chakra can get to your body. Not very much, but enough to learn and use a couple times the first few E-level white jutsu. Awesome! Yelled Naruto, starting an impromptu dance to show his happiness to the world, or at least the only other one able to see him. Even if it was only an academy-level jutsu, it was the first jutsu that belonged only to him, testament of the past existence of his family. Why did he inherit that from his father? Stated in a low voice the exasperated but amused Kushina. When her hyperactive son finally calmed down, Kushina resumed speaking. I'll give you the scroll as soon as you leave the seal, so copy it like the other one. Learn the first one, cure. Be aware that a few of the higher-level ninja in Konoha know about our family jutsu, and considering your last name, we'll put it together that you are my son if you use them before other people. Remember also what I said about people being able to find out who your father was by knowing me being your mother. You could be found out by his enemies. Naruto could see this only as a plus. A few more enemies wouldn't increase by much the number of people who wanted him dead, right? A few hours later, the Tsuchikage found a report on his desk from the hospital. What does it mean that most of my senior ninja and a good deal of the civilian population has just got a collective and simultaneous mild cold? Asked the surprised Kage. And after all, a monster didn't have a family, didn't it? If he had real human parents that people could trace, most of the proof that he was the fox would be unvalidated. Well, from the rational ones, at least. There were always stupids around. Don't stop studying the first scroll, though. Don't worry, Mom. Now go, I'll prepare the scroll. He nodded, yelled his happiness again, and left the mixing chamber, still yelling and jumping. Definitely all Minato, right? Asked the hopeful Kushina to the empty room. Naruto opened his eyes and grinned. He immediately took out a new scroll and waited about 5 minutes before a bunch of firefly appeared, and joined together to become a scroll. So that's why I had to copy them, they were made of fireflies. It made sense, actually, if they came from the far plane. He created the usual 2 clones to copy it, and sent them to seclude themselves in a corner somewhere, and copy the new scroll. It was much shorter than the first one and was titled Uzumaki Family Scroll, Basic to a quick survey, indicated that this was the first scroll that made direct use of the white chakra to craft jutsu. He couldn't wait until he mastered them all. He took out the spare scrap of paper where he copied just the instruction for the cure jutsu, went in a separate area to train in it, and read them again. As the first thing, I must study how my white chakra naturally heals my own wounds. Heh, that's what Mom intended with that hint. Then I must consciously recreate that construct with white chakra, to heal myself with a greater efficiency. The third step is to learn how to build that construct inside the body of someone else by sending over my white chakra, first at touch, then at a distance. The higher the distance, the more chakra control is required, but even perfect control won't give me a range greater than a few dozen meters. So this was the reason for that anatomy book, so I could know which areas to heal first to obtain the best results. Well, let's start. Having a great deal of practice with cutting and healing himself up, he quickly managed to build the construct. It was easy, really. No wonder it was an E-rank jutsu despite his own personal problems with the standard clone. Not wanting to waste all of his minute reserves of white chakra, he just built the construct and then disassembled it to let it go without waste, putting the energy back in his coils. He wanted something living to test his new jutsu on and practice the third step, but just as his mom said, he just had 1 or 2 shots. Better to keep it for myself in the third part of the exam. I'll train with it after I've finished here. Returning to the room Irika appeared in, he suddenly was aware of new memories from one of the clones. They had already copied and needed just his blood to activate the seal. What was more important was that he had inadvertently mastered one of the 3 steps of the skin jutsu, a high D-level white jutsu. He could already communicate mentally through a firefly. He had to learn to read it, to learn the things that happened to the host chakra, and the third step would be to send a minute tendril of white chakra to reach a ninja's fireflies inside his coils and read them, similar on how genjutsu actually work. Alternatively, if in combat, he could read the fireflies from the chakra the enemy expelled to form jutsu, but then it would only give information about that particular jutsu. Reading a firefly would give an enormous deal of knowledge about the chakra that particular firefly lived in, and the scroll said that I could easily learn the strength level of a ninja, what his favorite jutsu do, in a very generic sense, his true name, naturally if the host knew of it, and elemental alignment. Pure gold in the ninja world, just like the scary first examiner said. He immediately started searching his own coils for a firefly and found one. It took him half an hour to be able to read his own fireflies, and even then he got only a few scant information. His name, Uzumaki Naruto, he really hoped to find his father's last name, his elemental affinity, wind, good to know, 1 less chakra paper to buy, his favorite jutsu, naturally the shadow clone, but this one may become as frequently used, and a gauge of his chakra level, control, and his proficiency in the tree ninja arts. But since it was only a sensation, he had no reference until he started scanning others for a comparison. He could not get his general health or actual chakra levels, but he guessed it would come from practice. Since cure training was out, he tried to read the bastard while they lounged in the room without him noticing. It took him almost 3 hours to do it, and he depleted half of his meager reserves of white chakra to even reach that point. He learned that the bastard was much better than him in all of the 3 ninja arts, but he was closer to him in ninjutsu. Sasuke compared to him had a much lower chakra capacity and slightly better control, a natural lightning affinity, and an acquired fire one, probably due to all those fire jutsu he knew. He obviously had the Sharingan, activated to the 2nd level in each eye, and it meant he could see high-speed movements, memorize and copy jutsu and taijutsu by seeing chakra and hand seals. Everything else he already knew about him. He was tempted to scan Sakura-chan, but he decided he would wait until after the test. Kabuto observed his target. Despite not having an excuse to meet Sasuke in the forest, since he had both scrolls and trail rations, he still managed to spy on him for those 4 rest days without anyone noticing. The blonde one, Naruto, had a lot of sentries usually, but he was just a substandard genin, no trouble for the sound elite he represented. He had noticed his experiments with the fish, but put it away as a strange hobby of the stupid blonde. After all, even Orochimaru did similar things in his youth, and used his genius to turn those hobbies into some of the greatest scientific experiments. That boy was a dunce, instead, so probably did it just for a bit of cruel fun. Probably an effect from the yuki leaking into his brain. A pity Orochimaru-sama doesn't want him due to those ex-acquaintances of his. He could be a perfect specimen to study the effects of yuki on human cells. Naruto and the rest of Team 7 entered a spacious room on the ground floor of the tower together with the other 6 teams who passed the second part of the exam. There were 2 statues holding a hand seal on opposite sides of the room and a raised spectator area. After the speech of the Hokage and the sickly proctor, they knew the 3rd test, or at least the preliminary for it, required individual fights. To Naruto's immense surprise, Kabuto gave up before even trying. Even if his memory of him was just that of the shadow clone he left before the 1st exam, he looked tough, and this was his 7th exam. How could he just give up like that? And his excuse of not being able to hear from an ear or of being all beaten up, it wouldn't stop him. He contemplated scanning him, but decided to conserve his reserves for his battle. A quick scan as soon as he knew who it was so to form a viable plan. He was shaken off his thoughts when he heard Sakura begging Sasuke to quit. Her reasoning was sound, but he himself would never give up if he was in the bastard's place. And her mentioning a mark, could she mean a seal? Did that tongue freak put a seal on Sasuke too? He had to tell Sensei, fast. Maybe he can remove both, since the seal on his stomach was so complex he couldn't even start understanding what it did if his mother didn't already tell him of its effects on the fox's prison. Sasuke then started to tell off Sakura-chan, and when she protested, Sasuke did something that surprised Naruto. Sasuke just said he wants to fight me too? Sasuke, the selfish bastard, the stealer of the affections of his precious Sakura-chan, the one who always overshadowed him, the one everyone wanted to emulate, wanted to fight him, too. Had he just acknowledged him? As soon as the spectators moved to the top level, Naruto intercepted Kakashi-sensei. Sensei, I need to speak with you, it's urgent. Kakashi barely moved an eye in his direction. Naruto accepted it as a go-ahead. We met a powerful ninja in the exams. I don't know his name, but he was really freaky. He summoned snakes and moved like one too. He initially wore a grass forehead protector, but later he revealed the sound one. His name is Orochimaru, S-rank level missing nin of Konoha, said Kakashi, filing away the sound reference to tell the Hokage later. While we were fighting, he looked around to see if anyone was looking, then continued, my seal released a little of that chakra, and that guy to stop me placed another seal over it. Sakura was also saying something about a mark on Sasuke. He could have placed a seal on him, too. Kakashi now was worried. He hoped it was only some kind of restraining seal on Naruto. He tried to sense his chakra, but felt no yuki in it, and managed to calm himself down. We were already aware of Sasuke's mark. I plan to take care of it as soon as he finishes his fight. Yours was probably a restriction seal of some kind. I'll have Hokage bring a seal master to you tomorrow. Naruto nodded. It was only right, and if they already knew about Sasuke's, then there was nothing to worry about. Returning to pay attention to Sasuke's fight, he promoted himself from bastard to Sasuke after his acknowledgement. He noticed that his teammate really wasn't feeling well. What the hell are you doing, Sasuke? Naruto yelled, I won't forgive you if you lose. Sasuke looked at him, then it seemed like he just had an idea, and managed to use freaky eyebrows taijutsu attack to get his opponent in the air, and then to execute a combo attack that knocked out Yoroi, despite the fact that for a moment that mark expanded to cover his neck and face, causing him pain. Naruto was relieved to see Kakashi accompany Sasuke away to fix that mark, hoping his sensei could finish it fast enough to see Sakura and him fight. Hopefully not against each other. Shino's fight against Zaka proved to be really fascinating, but he made a mental note to ask his mother how his family jutsu would fare against a living hive of chakra-draining bugs. Sakura instead was really behaving strangely, murmuring something about icky bugs, not being allowed to swap, and luck. Weird. As soon as Shino's fight ended, Kakashi-sensei reappeared in a puff of smoke, telling them that Sasuke was now resting in the hospital. Both Naruto and Sakura sighed, relieved. The next fight, Kankuro vs Tsurugi Misumi, was almost the first fatality of the preliminaries, revealing Kankuro as a puppet master and the crushing defeat of the boneless guy, Tsurugi. Naruto really pitied the man, he probably now was both literally crushed and boneless. Kankuro certainly was ruthless. After that, a new pairing appeared in the panel, Sakura vs Ino. Naruto was extremely curious about Sakura-chan's opponent. They hated each other because of Sasuke, but it was more a heated rivalry than hate. He contemplated scanning Ino, but she wasn't his opponent, and had to conserve energy. He encouraged Sakura numerous times during the battle, but she still ended up in a tie, but demonstrated that she wasn't a weak ninja, probably to herself more than to the others. He realized also that she had used up all the exploding tags he brought, all 400 of them in the forest, or else she would have used them here. As soon as he saw it wasn't his turn, he immediately retreated a bit and sent a clone to write a dozen of them up in a hurry. The battle between the sand chick, Temari, and Fuzzy Eyebrows' teammate Tenten showed him the advantages of wind techniques against thrown weapons. Considering his newly discovered elemental affinity, he tried to imagine himself with a similar huge battle fan, but he had no idea of where to start getting those fan techniques and discarded the idea. And the sand chick's treatment of a fellow leaf grated within him. Luckily, Fuzzy Eyebrows caught her before she got hurt. Next was the turn of Shikamaru and Kinsuchi, the sound girl. He really wanted to conserve his white chakra, but he owed Shika for his tip in his first test, so he scanned her. As Shikamaru lazily passed him, Naruto whispered, "She is a genjutsu specialist and uses sound-based ones somehow tied to saban needles and wires. Her other abilities are below average. Good luck, Shika, and don't lose." Shikamaru nodded and proceeded to the floor below. The battle was rather quick. Shikamaru outsmarted his opponent and made her crash her head on the wall. Probably wouldn't have even needed Naruto's help to win. But now, it was the show time. Because on the panel there was Uzumaki Naruto vs Inuzuka Kiba. He was going to win. Naruto smirked at Kiba. In his pocket there were only the 14 exploding notes his clone hurriedly wrote during Tenten and Shikamaru's matches. Scanning Kiba, and subsequently Akamaru, revealed interesting information. Unfortunately, it also revealed that Kiba was stronger than him in all three main ninja specialties. His main ability was in ninjutsu, in particular the beast combo with his dog. His taijutsu was more devoted to let out his feral instincts than structured practice, and had no jinjutsu above henge, not that he himself was any better in it, but at least he wouldn't take advantage of his main weak point. His opening move will surely be the Shikyaku no Jutsu, the four-leg technique to increase strength and speed, and use then combo attack with the Jujin Bunshin, to transform Akamaru into the likeness of Kiba. The smart thing to do would be to separate them, somehow, but he wanted to dominate the battle with Kiba at full strength, or he would whine that he couldn't use his best jutsu and that his win was a fluke. Considering his store of white chakra, that he could use only to heal himself for now, could give him an immense advantage in stamina. And if he came to be wounded in battle, he would get a little more white chakra from the seal. Time would be his friend. He began planning a prolonged battle, but it would work only if the difference in strength and speed wasn't too large. Ha! This will be a piece of cake, Akamaru. We have practically already won. The little white dog barked once as an answer. Akamaru battle data was as interesting as Kiba's. Akamaru was strong in taijutsu and a little less in ninjutsu compared to Kiba, but he was weaker than Naruto in all three areas. It was just a puppy after all. Unfortunately, Kiba's technique would allow to equilibrate the partners and compensate the difference between dog and master, making them indistinguishable at a first sight. Their senses also were many times more powerful than a regular human, making most trickery a one-time deal, because once Kiba started becoming suspicious he would check everything. "Don't dare to underestimate me, Kiba," said Naruto, smirking, hoping that he would, instead. It would make his humiliation total. "Begin," said the examiner, "Hate. Let's go, Akamaru," and joined the hands to form a seal. Before Kiba could act, Naruto threw a kunai at Kiba, who dodged easily. "Heh, missed. Shikyaku no Jutsu," yelled Kiba as predicted. Naruto decided to see with his eyes Kiba's new strength, since he wouldn't be able to stop him performing that technique for the whole match. Preparing to receive Kiba's punch, the clone Kiba has been confronting all this time collected chakra to protect himself and last a bit more after the impact so he could adequately assess his opponent's strength and give that information back to the original. hidden by a henge as the kunai just thrown, now lying on the ground behind Akamaru. Kiba rushed him with an awesome speed and punched him right into the wall, cracking it and partially collapsing it on the clone. "Ha, how weak," said Kiba. On the observation deck, many people were silently agreeing with Kiba, except Team 7. "Did he just?" asked Sakura, remembering Zabuza's first meeting. The Naruto that crashed into the wall disappeared into a cloud of smoke. "What?" said the stunned Kiba. Behind Akamaru, the true Naruto revealed himself and captured the puppy, tying him down with ninja wire and leaving him on the ground. If Kiba wanted to free him, he would have to risk himself a bit more. "Damn coward! Give me back Akamaru!" yelled Kiba. "Why should I? Your best techniques require his presence, so without Akamaru your combat abilities are crippled." Kiba became furious, and launched himself in a spiraling technique, calling Tsuga. Despite what Naruto said, he truly wanted to fight Kiba and Akamaru together, but he could not afford it. After having felt on his clone's skin the power and speed of his attacks, he realized that he would lose if he left such an advantage to the Inuzuka opponent. He created a series of clones to keep Akamaru safe but at the same moment, away from Kiba. Now he just had to tire him out a bit without being eviscerated first. "Wow, whoever though that Naruto could outsmart Kiba," said Ino, surprised. He probably had a couple plans as soon as he was before those two. He observed the strength of Kiba alone and must have decided to separate him from the dog, said Shikamaru. They observed a few more Tsuga attacks from Kiba, noting how Naruto barely avoided most of them, but being hit more than a couple of times and not just the clones, either. It was a smart thing too. Kiba is both faster and stronger than Naruto by a good margin. Now I want to see what he plans to do now, because Kiba is calming down. As Shikamaru said, Kiba started regaining his composure and focus, even biting his own hand to get over his rage. His primary objective now was the recovery of Akamaru, not reducing to a pulp Naruto. That could wait those few more seconds. Deciding for a course of action, he gathered behind his back a smoke bomb and a few kunai. After he raised his hand to throw the bomb, Naruto could not believe his own eyes, because Kiba was providing him with the key element of a plan one of his clones contemplated but discarded, lacking a way to obscure his sight, before being destroyed by Tsuga. Kiba let the smoke bomb explode, covering the area in a dense smoke, and immediately flew like an arrow toward Akamaru's scent, peppering the area where he smelled Naruto with the kunai. He was enraged because he suddenly smelled Akamaru's blood, too. Naruto had hurt him for no reason. He felt a few pop of those damn clones exploding, but he managed to steal Akamaru back. He lost a few precious seconds cutting away the wire and finally he let him retreat to a safe zone, while he pulled out the soldier pills to give the punk the lesson he clearly deserved. However, simply beating him down was no longer an option. He hurt Akamaru and made him look like a fool before Hinata, his sensei and the Hokage himself, and he would repay it with the same medicine. "Now what will you do, now that I have the clear advantage?" taunted Kiba, waiting for the cloud to dissipate. He knew from the blood smell that he got him with a kunai, and wasn't surprised to see Naruto holding his wounded right shoulder. It was a pity it wasn't a more critical area. "Not so tough now, right?" laughed Kiba, until something registered as wrong in his senses. Akamaru's blood smell from beside him was covering up Naruto's scent. He hurriedly looked down where the freed Akamaru was, and saw his dog activate a large array of seals written all around his position, with kunai placed in 12 strategic locations. Kunai with now glowing explosive notes. The Naruto before him deactivated his henge, showing himself to be just a little battered. The kunai cut him, true, but the injury was much less severe than what the henge shoved. Naruto smirked and said, "That is a trap, Kiba, primed to explode if you move or in 10 seconds, whatever comes first. Give up and I'll defuse it." "How? When?" asked Sakura, completely surprised. She turned to Kakashi-sensei, who was watching with the Sharingan eye uncovered. Despite the smoke cloud, easily obscuring the sight of even his Sharingan eye, he was a genius and a Jonin, and could easily guess what happened inside it. He created a few clones as soon as the smoke appeared, and used them to draw the seal while the smoke covered them. One of those clones henged into Akamaru, and waited until Kiba rescued the true dog, then switched with it. With all that smoke he wouldn't have noticed a bit more, but to make the switch more credible, he took some blood from the true dog to cover his own scent. So Kiba, both enraged and worried about the wound of his dog, was too distracted to note the switch. So he freed the henge clone and let it go near the almost completed trap. Kiba followed Akamaru's blood scent and retreated beside the dog clone, right in the middle of that circle. The fake dog just had to activate it. "A masterful tactic, splendidly executed," said Kakashi-sensei. "I can think of several ways of how he managed to mask the true Akamaru's smell, but I don't think he knows those jutsus. It was probably that seal array." He nodded toward a small ruined circle that was just becoming visible through the smoke. So you knew of Naruto's training with seals? Asked Sakura. Iruka informed me, yes. It was his duty after all, I'm your commander. Naruto also knew Iruka would inform me as soon as he reached a level where his knowledge became useful on the field. Sakura remained silent for a while. Hade looked at the seal on the floor and saw that it was a really easy D-rank seal trap, the explosive cage, the sort a genin could normally see and avoid in his sleep. It is so completely obvious and visible that requires something like that smoke cover and either a dumb opponent or a heavily distracted one to utilize fully, as the Uzumaki boy just demonstrated. The true dog was also in a smaller, more complex C-rank array, the still air seal, that would stop air currents, useful during stakeouts to stop sense from propagating, but little used because it has to be reformed and deleted at every change in position. Stealth jutsus are generally better in every way, but the kid evidently doesn't know any. Ingenious use of a non-combat seal and an impractical one in a battle situation. If this was the third test and he was one of the judges, he would surely have voted for the kid's promotion just for that feat. He also apparently had some information on his opponent's fighting style. He anticipated his moves a bit too many times, but that was only a plus, especially because he came up with a plan to counter it and use his fighting advantage against itself. Seeing that the Inuzuka had no idea on how to get out before the trap exploded, he said, Inuzuka Kiba is unable to free himself. Winner, Uzumaki Naruto. Please hurry to dismantle the trap. The Uzumaki kid nodded, and the clone who activated the seal put chakra in 3 seemingly innocuous glyphs, and the symbols returned to their inert state. The original ripped away the tags from the kunai and collected them back. There aren't that many genin with any expertise in seals. It should be interesting, this Uzumaki Naruto. Yes. That was great, yelled Sakura. I can't believe it, Naruto won, said Ino, despite the previous comments from Shikamaru. Chuji, behind them, said, it was a good fight though. Yeah, but now we'll have to hear his troublesome bragging all he way here, said Shikamaru, who despite his words and tone had looked really interested in the fight. Yush! Yelled a green-clad genin nearby, nearly deafening the trio. Now it will surely be my turn, Guy-sensei. Sorry about hurting Akamaru, Kiba, said Naruto, apologetic. Kiba was on the verge of an explosion, but calmed down after Akamaru barked for a bit. It was a ninja battle and you didn't hurt him more than you had to. Akamaru forgives you, so I guess I will, too, he said, a little depressed. You have been the best opponent I ever had, Kiba. Not the strongest, but the best, said Naruto with a mischievous smile. Then he ran away. Hey! Roared Kiba, mock-chasing him upstairs. Children, said Hate, coughing a couple of lungs away. Naruto-kun, said Hinata, gathering a little bit of courage. She approached the boy and offered him a little box. What is it, Hinata? Medicinal cream, said Kurinai-sensei, behind him. You should accept it. Hinata made it herself and it's incredibly effective. Naruto nodded. Thank you, Hinata. After having mostly healed Akamaru with his first successful cure jutsu as soon as he was declared winner, he had no white chakra left. Healing others was a lot less efficient, but maybe it will be only a matter of practice. After applying a little bit of that cream on his skin, he felt the wound close, similar, if in a smaller scale, to the effects of his own bloodline. This stuff is incredible, Hinata. You have true talent in medicine making. Hinata became redder than a tomato and turned away her eyes. She really can't take a compliment. About Naruto's seals, why you never said anything to him? Or to us? Sakura asked Kakashi, seeing that Naruto was occupied with Hinata. About what? He was just beginning with them, even if Iruka showed me a couple of his creations and were really good. If Naruto told you a month ago that he wanted to learn seals, what would have been your answer? Be honest. Sakura looked down. I would have told him that he was too stupid to do something that complicated and to give it up. I think he wanted to show you his ability only when he had already reached a sufficient level of mastery, but the exam came a bit too soon. However, he had good judgment in telling all of you before the start of the second test. His sealing abilities would have made you suspicious of him if he didn't. I had already been impressed by the little he showed us and what he used on Kiba. Oh, those are just practice seals. They work, but are mostly impractical in a true battle. What made his fight so good was the fact that the seal that made the final trap is so visible that it is almost impossible to catch someone in it. And I guess that if he didn't manage to get Kiba in the seal circle, he would have simply primed just the exploding notes. Akamaru was still in his hands, after all. I'm surprised he didn't use him as a hostage, said Sakura. It would have been the fastest way to win. Probably Naruto didn't want to. To Kiba, Akamaru is his most precious friend. Naruto would never be able to forgive himself if he threatened him that way. A simple cut with a kunai like Naruto did to fool him is a perfectly acceptable battle injury even to a hothead like Kiba. And look at Kiba himself, now. He lost, but as he began thinking back to the battle, He most likely realized he has been outclassed both in the tactical and the information gathering side of the fight, just like he outclassed Naruto in strength, speed, and ninjutsu. Yes, just like all of us, he saw Naruto the Academy dead last, not Naruto the Shinobi, said Sakura with a little shame. Kakashi covered his eye and took out his book, to the disgust of Sakura. Naruto was ecstatic. His clone's plan succeeded beyond all his expectations. Well, technically it was his plan, but he wanted to give credit where his was due. The shadow clone technique and his secret was the very best thing that could happen in his life after ramen and his bloodline. With all those minds thinking different tactics while fighting, he could come up with impressive ones in the nick of time, multiplying his tactical effectiveness many times over. He passed Hinata's cream to Kiba and Akamaru, too, and they used it with enthusiasm, evidently aware of her ability, but he seemed a bit peeved that his teammate had given it to him first. Strange. Akamaru's wound closed very fast, and Naruto was relieved that both Akamaru and his pet dog, Snicker, bore him no ill will for the hostage situation. Well, not too much. At least it was a friend who made him aware of that possibility first, and not an enemy ninja. Even Akamaru had realized it, apparently, and Kiba was now pampering the puppy under the eyes of his sensei. Speaking of her, he met her gaze and she nodded, then returned her attention to Kiba. It felt really good to gain the approval of the sensei of a ninja he defeated, really. It meant that he was closer to recognition and a step nearer to his dream. And not only her, he saw even the old man Hokage approved of his fight. He never felt prouder of himself. He couldn't wait to tell his mother all about it. As soon as the new matchup appeared, Kiba hurriedly got up and reached Hinata, speaking with her. He was probably trying to encourage her for her match, because the two names were Hyuga Hinata and Hyuga Neji. They probably had some kind of bad blood between them, because Neji was staring daggers at Hinata, with a gaze full of loathing and hate. Naruto was very acquainted with both, thanks to the fox. Neji's gaze was at the level of his worst haters. If he had just enough white chakra left, he would skin him, but his eyes would probably see his probe and call on him for some kind of cheating, possibly getting both Hinata and him disqualified. He looked a prick enough to do it just for spite. It wasn't worth it. Neji would die slowly. How dare he belittle Hinata, beating her to within an inch of her life and call her weak and a loser even when she got up after a heart shot. He already knew about the Tenketsu, the chakra circulatory system, and the Byakugan due to the library books, so Lee's explanation during the match didn't tell him much he didn't already know, and was aware of the danger of the gentle fist. To see it firsthand, though, was absolutely fascinating, at least until Neji allowed the sewer that was his brain to connect to his mouth and to vomit trash about Hinata. He got so angry that he couldn't stop himself from yelling up to encourage Hinata to beat that ass up. And when Neji attacked despite the proctor telling him not to, he was too slow to help, but fortunately 4 Jonin intervened, including Kakashi-sensei, and stopped him from killing Hinata. But when she fell down, coughing up blood, he had to go to her, his worry giving him speed to get to her side and check her up. He had no more white chakra, but somehow in his desperation he managed to extract a trickle of it from the seal, just enough for a single cure jutsu. He crafted the construct in her heart, hoping it would be enough. Cure is just an E-level jutsu and not designed for such heavy injuries, but at least it could alleviate them. He felt the energy leaving him and her breathing recover. She would hopefully live, now, until she received professional help. But as he said earlier, her cousin would not. He hoped Hinata wasn't too attached to him, especially after what he did to her. And when Neji told him that he was a loser too, he just put a few more nails in his coffin, really. He would have to thank Orochimaru's seal for once, because without that, he would have inundated the room with escaped Yuki and reduced that prick into a red smear in the ground. His fury became cold, instead, and simply swore on Hinata's blood that he would defeat him in the most humiliating way he could think of. He would decide if he was going to really kill him, or not after Hinata's recovery. Mother doesn't like the smell of that blonde's chakra, said Gaara, looking at the show below him. His sibling were starting to fidget a little, but it was just a mild bloodlust, not truly worrying for their continued health, for the moment. However, they started praying for the soul of that guy, because attracting their little brother's attention was a synonym of a very short life. Sabaku no Gaara and Rock Lee were the names in the electronic board. Chuji was incredibly happy to have avoided the 2 strongest genin that still had to fight, but not as much as Lee having finally his turn, and avoiding to be the last one. After a few completely obvious observations from Gai-sensei, Lee jumped down to meet his opponent, who had used a San Shunshin as soon as his name appeared in the board. Naruto was just glad that he had been spared from seeing that genjutsu again. Gaara looked completely impassible, but suddenly, the gourd stopper flew toward Lee, with an impressive speed. Lee simply caught it with a single hand. Hate let the fight begin and Lee started a series of impressive taijutsu attacks, but none got past Gaara's sand shield. If that shield is blocking all his attacks, why doesn't he retreat a bit and use a few ninjutsu? Asked Sakura, curious. It's not that Lee doesn't use ninjutsu, started Guy, with a serious expression. Simply Lee has no talent at all in ninjutsu or genjutsu. What? How did he get here then? Asked the shocked Sakura. Naruto, too, was surprised. When I first met him, he had absolutely no talent, the only thing he could do was taijutsu. And that's why he can win, he said with a glint in his eyes. Lee, take them off, yelled Guy, after a last series of unsuccessful attacks all blocked by the sand. But Guy-sensei, didn't you tell me I couldn't remove them unless I had to protect a lot of precious people? I will allow it, he said in the good guy pose. Lee looked very happy and started to remove the orange leg warmers, to uncover weights. And to the surprise of everyone, they literally caused 2 craters in the stone floor below just by being dropped. How could he move with that speed with all that weight? Asked Naruto. It is because of his hard work and dedication, replied Guy. Go Lee! Yelled, basking a bit in pride of his prized student. Lee at that point became so fast it was hard to believe. He could even run on the ceiling just thanks to his speed, and could circumvent the sand shield, by moving too fast for it to react in time. Gaara, however, had a second layer of defense, an armor composed of sand, that absorbed all of Lee's hits. Lee barely managed to crack it, revealing that below, Gaara had an absolutely insane expression of crazed bloodlust. With a quick look at Guy-sensei, Lee realized that he had to perform the lotus to win and that his sensei realized it too and approved. With a lightning-fast move, Lee kicked repeatedly Gaara, with the first hitting him under the chin to make him fly in the air. The repeated kicking necessary due to the heavy weight of the sand armor. The pain from the prolonged use of the initial lotus caused Lee to flinch for a moment, allowing Gaara to slip out of the armor unnoticed, and due to the after effects of the technique, Lee was finding himself in trouble, now. What happened to him, Guy-sensei? Asked Sakura, worried. The lotus technique is a double-edged sword, said Guy. That is a forbidden technique, because it causes so much stress to the body of the user that after its use he is in so much pain he can barely move. Sakura and Naruto observed Lee with fear in their eyes. If he continued fighting that way. But as soon as she thought about pleading to Lee to give up, he suddenly recovered his speed and energy. He is about to get back into the fight. The lotus of the leaf blooms twice, said Guy, with a slight grin. You didn't, exclaimed Kakashi. Yes, just like you though, answered Guy. So that Genin kid will open the celestial gates? Asked Kakashi, worried. Naruto immediately sharpened his ears. Yes, admitted Guy. How many? 5. Kakashi looked shocked. Even if I lost respect for you, Guy, I must admit that I am impressed with your student. I did it in respect of his determination and his indomitable willpower, so that he can accomplish a goal he is willing to give his life for. Naruto was about to ask more information about the gates, but fortunately Sakura managed to ask it first. What are those celestial gates you talked about? It's the removal of certain limits in the chakra circulatory system. Lee had to open them in order to prepare for the extreme lotus. Yes, interrupted Kakashi, in the inner coils where chakra flows there are 8 special places, called gates, where the chakra flow is highly regulated. Opening a gate allows a great deal of chakra to flow through the coils, however those gates have an important job on the body, they keep it from harming itself. What do you mean? Asked Naruto, worried of being forced to use a self-destructing ability to use one of the very first basics of his family jutsu. The gates are in order: the initial gate, the heal gate, the life gate, the harm gate, the limit gate, the view gate, the wonder gate, and the death gate. Opening the initial gate removes the limits that control muscle strength, allowing the body to use a strength up to 10 times the normal, but tearing yourself up. The heal gate greatly increases healing rate and stamina but damages your immune system, and so on. Each gate is a different double-edged weapon, but they must be opened in the exact sequence, or the user will die because of the released chakra pressuring the still closed gates around and busting them forcibly open. Naruto shivered again. By opening the 3rd gate, Lee will enter the extreme lotus. Continued Guy as soon as Kakashi stopped. Opening all 8 of the gates will give the user a power well over that of any Kage, but at the end, the user will inevitably die. Yes, that technique is a truly double-edged sword, said Kakashi. Naruto was stunned. He realized that he could never ask Kakashi about the book related to the celestial gates, now, seeing the open disapproval of Guy-sensei teaching them to a genin. And he probably would end up having to hide the book from his sensei if he ever got his hands on it, until he memorized all he needed from it. But first, I will read again the scroll. With what they told us just now, I could piece together something useful and I could bounce any thought about it to Mom so I don't do something incredibly stupid to myself. By opening one gate after the other, Lee's skin became red and blood vessels burst open, but he moved so fast that very few people could even see him. Gaara's sand armor was demolished blow after blow, but just as Lee's muscles snapped, he completed the extreme lotus, swirling Gaara in the air with the bandages in his forearms and trying to plant him into the ground. Gaara, to save himself, was forced to use his last sand, the gourd itself, to cushion the fatal impact. After the landing of both, Gaara raised one hand, summoning his sand to crush an arm and a leg of the unmoving Lee. But as he tried a follow-up fatal attack to kill the crippled boy, Guy, who shined down to save his unconscious student, stopped the sand with a sweep of his hand. Guy's word touched most presence, however they didn't look to have sorted any kind of effect on the sand genin except confusion. Naruto despaired when he overheard the medic Nins telling Guy about Lee most likely no longer being able to be a ninja. He knew his cure spell was awfully inadequate to even begin healing damage such as what Lee did to himself, and he began fearing those very techniques were created to counteract similar damage from the main family jutsu. "Naruto, are you alright?" asked Sakura. "Why yes, alright. I was just worried about freaky eyebrows, that's all." Sakura nodded too. He was really incredible. He encountered probably the worst kind of opponent for him, but still managed to almost defeat him twice. But he paid a high price for it, concluded Naruto. For once, he couldn't feel truly happy for Lee's great performance, since it could cost him his dream. However, he was sure one of the strongest white jutsu may be able to help him. Promising himself to double his resolve in learning them, he returned his attention to the proctor, who was calling for freeing the combat area and calling down the last two genin. Chuji and that last sound guy, dose of something. Unfortunately, Chuji lost really fast. He greatly underestimated his opponent, and that guy apparently already knew about his best technique. Chuji probably used it when Team 10 rescued them in the forest, and the sound guy saw it, including figuring out how to get around it. That reminded him that he still had to hear a more complete report from Sakura about what happened then, other than Lee and Team 10 saved us when that sound team attacked. After the short speech of the old man Hokage, and the drawing of his own turn in the third exam, against Neji. The very first. Yes, he told the assembled genin that the actual third exam would be held in an arena 1 month from now. Naruto could only barely resist making an evil grin thinking about all the training he could do in a whole month with the help of the shadow clones. In a month's time, he was sure he would be ready to reduce Neji to mincemeat. He was also glad that it wouldn't be just the winner of the whole tournament to become a Chuunin. And the whole arena thing was the most perfect thing he could imagine for making Neji humiliation as embarrassing as possible. He could literally squash him before not only his family, but thousands of people as well. I think I'll get a Kiko to bet most my savings on my victory in the first match. I wouldn't mind a little extra pocket money to add to the sweet package of a bleeding black and blue Neji, and since he is the genius of the Hyuga clan, I'll get some very good odds. Sometimes it literally pays to be known as the dead last. Once they were free to go, after they were accompanied out of the forest of death, he returned home to leave his second family scroll in its hiding place. When he entered, though, he found one clone happily eating ramen. "Who are you?" asked the true Naruto. "Sheesh, boss, did you forget already? I was tasked to impersonate a Kiko while you were at the exam." Naruto almost punched himself. In his excitement, he forgot all about it. He was, however, surprised by how long the clone had lasted. "Good job with Kiba, boss. It was a really good fight. Now prepare yourself, I have a good deal of things to pass on to you." Naruto braced himself as the clone before him dissipated. Apparently Akiko had already bought those chakra cards and tried one, read a few more books on chakra manipulation, especially about genjutsu. He still wanted Irika's lessons about it, but after that skin practice he had an idea on how to send chakra construct on other people's coils, the base of all the genjutsu not born from a bloodline. Apparently the clone managed to last this long because it spent very little chakra and conserved it whenever it could by meditating. Still, it was running low now, after almost 6 days. Summoning 5 clones, he gave them a few jobs. One would continue being Akiko, one would make tags, to trade this time for training weights. If Fuzzy Eyebrows became so strong with them, he didn't see any harm emulating him, just not to that degree. And an especially big NO to the spandex. The original would go slaughtering fishes, one would go visit Sasuke, and if already possible, Lee and the last 2 clones would simply go read interesting books in the ninja section of the library. Clone number 3, the one assigned to visit the hospital, was depressed by the fact that none of his friends were allowed to receive visitors. Seeing Kakashi-sensei just returning from the inside of the hospital, he latched onto him. "Kakashi-sensei, how is Sasuke?" "He will be well, but now is still unconscious. And for your next question, make it your next 2 questions. The Seal Master will come to your house tomorrow morning, as apparently he is occupied right now, and I found someone to train you for this month." "Eh? Someone? You won't teach me?" asked the clone, dejected. "Don't say that, Naruto. He is even better than me at teaching." "What teaching?" asked acidly the clone to himself, becoming really bitter at the though of being pawned off. "You are planning to teach Sasuke, isn't it?" said the clone, with suspicion in his eyes. Kakashi clearly avoided his eyes. I knew it. Well, he is here. I'll see you at the finals, Naruto, said Kakashi before disappearing. Naruto turned around and saw Ebisu looking at him. Well, since we already know each other, I'll just tell you what I'm going to teach you. The clone nodded. Since he officially had been given permission by Kakashi-sensei to instruct him, he could learn something good. Kakashi already informed me that you are taking lessons with Yumino Irika, your old academy instructor for remedial lessons, and I just came from meeting him. He will continue to fill up your most glaring holes up to genin level, and I'll get from there up. Your team leader also informed me that your chakra molding and control has noticeably become more efficient, and you are ready for high genin control exercises, so I'll begin immediately with water walking. After that, we'll check your elemental affinity and I'll teach you a few D-rank ninjutsu of that element. Wind. I've already checked. I am a wind nature elemental. That's rare here in Konoha, said Ebisu, thoughtful. Unfortunately, wind and lightning are two elements Konoha isn't well supplied with, in the high rank level, at least. The clone nodded. That would just mean he would make his own. He mentally added jutsu creation to the things to look for in the library. I'm also using the shadow clones to increase my training time. In fact, the original Naruto right now is training in the woods outside Konoha. He'll learn everything I know after I disappear. Another 2 clones are in the library right now to study books in the ninja section. Ebisu looked truly impressed, took his notebook and made a few corrections. Can you use ninjutsu? Catching the mischievous eyes of the clone, he hastily added, I mean jutsu harder than a henge. The clone created a shadow clone beside himself, slightly pouting. Unlike the original, I can't regenerate chakra, so creating a shadow clone halves my lifespan. Still, I can use all the jutsu the boss knows until I run out of energy, and I have enough chakra for a few hours still. Well, since there are 2 of you, now one of you will go to the library, and he began writing a note. We'll fetch this book. He passed the note with his name and Naruto's both in a permission slip to check out a book named Introduction to Wind-Natured Jutsu. The other one will fetch the original, because a shadow clone will likely dissipate in the early stages of learning water walking. Tell him to meet me at the hot springs near the east gate in 15 minutes. The 2 clones nodded, one dissipating himself, the other hurrying to the library. Even if his new teacher was a closet pervert, he was a qualified teacher, assigned by the third to teach his grandson Konohamaru, and he promised to teach him in a few days what Kakashi should have taught him months ago. And from what Ebisu-sensei told him, Kakashi-sensei knew what his problems were, but didn't even bother to tell him himself. At least he left him with a competent teacher, just like he said before fleeing, a better teacher than him. Not that it wouldn't take much. He would just have to teach him a couple things and he would surpass Kakashi. Although, however, stopped him. If Kakashi-sensei was so neglectful of one of the students who passed the tests, what would stop him about completely forgetting about Sakura-chan? He promised himself to check on Sakura-chan tomorrow and see if Kakashi-sensei had at least spoken to her. The original Naruto was cutting up fishes at a rapid pace. Knowing approximately the time needed for the soul to leave the body, he managed to check up on 4 at the same time. His following ability has arrived to around 18 seconds, and he had caught most of the movement patterns. It was the final breakthrough when he decided to guess the final movement of the soul and touched a really cold barrier, if he could call it that. He managed to sense the soul easily flow through, and he finally guessed his portion of the training was about to end. Repeating his success with the next 2 fishes, he made the next step in the training, and preceded the soul to the far plane barrier as soon as the soul started its departure. He reached it in less than a second, while the soul took almost 20 to reach it. Giddy, he collected a bit more white chakra and prodded the far plane barrier. Suddenly he could feel it. A firefly left the far plane barrier and followed his white chakra trail out of the fish. As soon as it reached the fish along that weird direction, he could see the firefly leaving the body, in the visible spectrum. It was really pretty, just like all the others, and somehow, he felt it was under his command. Good job, Naruto-chan. Mom? He asked, surprised. He could actually sense his mother's presence nearing and connecting to the firefly. He also sensed that the little energy he gave to that firefly would keep it here for just a dozen minutes before running out. I see you managed to summon your first firefly. I have a lot to tell you, actually. I just passed the second test of the Chuunin exam. And in a month I will humiliate the genius of the Hyuga clan. The Hyuga, huh? Are they still so completely stiff? No. Hinata is nice, but a little weird. But her cousin is, and he almost killed her just for spite. Kushina seemed to think a little, then asked, Tell me of yourself, Naruto-chan. Even if this firefly disappears, we can continue this evening inside the seal. Naruto nodded, then he proceeded to enthusiastically give Kushina the highlights of his life. If Naruto could see her facial expressions, he probably would have gone in hiding in a very deep place to avoid the ground zero of her rage against what once was her beloved village. Sensing the exhaustion of his white chakra, he said, And this is how I managed to graduate. Ah, the rest will have to wait, Mom. The firefly is about to vanish. Why yes, I'll see you this night, honey, and I'm sorry again for leaving you all alone. Naruto nodded and left. He was tired, had more fish that he could eat, and had mastered this exercise, so he decided to call it a day. He would give some to Irika-sensei as a thank you for his lessons, hoping he wouldn't inquire on why they were all headless. Akiko bowed to the shopkeeper while she bought a little more rice to go with all those fishes the true Naruto was catching right now. Ramen, unfortunately, didn't taste right with roasted fish, and he didn't know any other fish recipe. He contemplated a fish ramen, but he wasn't a genius chef like Ichiraku and wouldn't dare to desecrate ramen by doing experiments with it. Still, it was nice being Akiko, especially on how townspeople were nice to her. However, her mission today was to get friendly with an older Leaf Genin who lost in the first exam, because as soon as she scanned him, for practice, curiosity and information gathering, she discovered that the guy had access to the original documents regarding the clans in Konoha. Working in the tower as a small-time administrator as some kind of punishment. She wanted, obviously, to get her hands on the Uzumaki register and see her father's name. Technically, if Naruto had been listed as a member of that clan, she wouldn't have had any trouble getting it, but everyone assumed her last name had been assigned to her by the third as a trick to sway the people's attention from the fox reincarnated. Damn, it's getting easier to think of myself as a girl when I wear Akiko's form. I hope this is just an effect of a good infiltration talent, or I may get worried. Getting to know the guy was easy, she simply had to ask him about the history of Konoha, and just as her skin revealed, his hidden passion left the two of them to chat about her village for a couple hours. She learned a great deal, too, so it wasn't wasted time, and he clearly could see that the guy wasn't interested in an underdeveloped 12-year-old girl, so he was safe, too. She just hoped the boss would forgive her for getting his rice a little late. Naruto, the true one, arrived at the hot springs a few minutes before Ebisu-sensei, just a few minutes after his clone's memory told him of the appointment. He had just given Irika-sensei his surplus fishes and was planning to relax a bit by reading the second half of the first scroll, but true training from the closet pervert was too tempting to resist. Alright, Naruto, began Ebisu, as soon as he arrived. The beginning stage of water walking is traditionally done in a similar environment. Naruto was a little disbelieving, but still listened with attention. Now, unlike tree walking, where you just have to place a fixed amount of chakra on your feet, he walked near the hottest pool. To walk on water, you must constantly emit it from your feet in such a way to create a surface that can hold your weight. He stepped on the very hot water and stood in it. Hot water is both slightly easier to effect with this technique and an incredible incentive for success, said the teacher with a smirk. Naruto nodded and started gathering his chakra on his feet. Wishing to avoid a boiling hot bath, he carefully stepped on the water, where he promptly fell in it. Hot! He yelled, jumping out. Ebisu didn't help by laughing, even if only a little. As you can see, just like in tree walking, only the right amount of chakra will allow you to remain stable on the surface. The difference is that this time it has to be a constant flow instead of a constant amount. An increased difficulty of this exercise is that variation of mass, center of gravity, or movement alter the distribution of weight on your feet and require intuitive readjustment of that same flow. You will have to practice until you are able to fight on water as well as you fight on the ground. Only then you'll have this skill mastered. Naruto nodded. He had never had an exercise explained so well, even if he had a little trouble understanding things like center of gravity and such, but it was clear after he said that he had to fight while doing all this without having to think about it. After you manage to stay on top of the water, you can use clones to perfect the skill and will do taijutsu training. Irika told me that your form is horrible, but the academy style doesn't suit you. I'm afraid, not very knowledgeable about a taijutsu style that would suit your build and style. I will have to ask Mato Guy about it, but in the meantime I'll let Irika correct your basic punches and kicks. Naruto shivered, and hoped Guy's suggestions didn't include green spandex. However, he was intrigued, because apparently Ebisu was allowed to ask others for training tips if not outright training for his benefit. That could be of enormous benefit to his training, and he almost hoped Kakashi could train Sasuke for more than a single month. Naruto trained for an hour, falling dozens of times in the scalding water until he decided to remove his jumpsuit, when he heard a familiar giggle. There, just like a couple weeks ago, there was the same pervert he sent to the hospital to test his blood seal, still peeping on the female half of the spring. Ebisu followed his gaze and was appalled by this man's behavior, in such a public place, too. What a shameful display, sir! Yelled Ebisu, hurriedly walking to confront the man. You should be ARGH. He didn't finish the phrase, because as soon as he started talking, the man made a few hand seals and a giant toad appeared below him. The toad shot out with its tongue and knocked out his teacher. Keep quiet, you don't want me to get caught, do you? Said the old man. Naruto was surprised Ebisu lost. Well, not really, considering how easily he lost to his harem no jutsu. He wasn't that strong, but still he was a jonin. Hey you, damn pervert! asked Naruto, posing himself before the man. Who the hell are you? And what's with that frog? The damn pervert looked happy, actually happy to be asked for his name. And he did a very weird pose, too. Thanks for asking, kid. I am the Toad Hermit of MT Myobokugama, the Gamma Sennin. Remember it. What the hell are you talking about, Ero Sennin? You disabled my teacher. He was in the way of my research, said the man, with a smug face. Research? He asked, confused. All he saw was the man peeping as a common pervert. Even twice. Yes, I am the writer of this literary masterpiece. He extracted a very familiar orange book from his pocket. Naruto instantly recognized it. That is, words could not come out to express the amount of indignation he felt right in that moment. Oh, you heard of it then? They get younger every day, said the old pervert, pleased. That is the worst trash book ever seen in Konoha, that's what I heard. And it was true. Akiko heard plenty of such rumors from housewives, shopkeepers, and kunoichi. Strangely, most men instead talked about it as a holy book. He himself leaned toward the girl's opinion, seeing all the faithful readers were perverts, including Kakashi-sensei and the Hokage himself. And most of them had fallen for his Oiroku no Jutsu at least once. The man seemed to lose his good humor really fast at that. You are evidently too young to understand the beauty of this kind of literature, kid. What the hell do you intend with literature, old man? If your research comes from spying naked girls, you are seriously committing wagon-loads of crimes just to write that trash. You fool. I'm really serious about my books and I want the highest quality in my works. That is just an excuse to peep. And what about him? He was supposed to teach me, you know. Teach you? That water walking you were doing? Yes. But since you knocked him out, you'll take his place. Are you kidding, brat? Why should I do it? Naruto was out of ideas. Normally he would have used Oiroku no Jutsu to convince this pervert to help him, but after a few days as Akiko and being aware of boys' stares, he wasn't sure he could bring himself to use it as a bribe, especially with this kind of pervert. Then the man suddenly seemed to recognize the orange jumpsuit on the floor. You! It was you, you damn brat, wasn't it? Yelled the pervert. Naruto was worried. He had a crazed expression on his face. Well, I must thank you, your jutsu inspired me in one of the greatest scenes my mind ever conceived. Naruto actually felt dirty after hearing that. As a thank you, I will actually oversee your training, for today only. Oh, thank you. And he mentally added, yes, thank you, Ero Sennin. As he resumed his training, he again fell a few times, but he didn't notice that the old pervert was looking with real interest at his stomach. He would have been creeped out if he did. So that is truly Minato's son, he really looks like him, too. As soon as Naruto fell again in the water, he was able to get a better look at the seal. Kid, come here a moment, and mold a little chakra, please. Naruto shrugged his shoulders a moment, and did as asked. He saw the man examine the seal attentively. Are you a seal master? Ero Sennin? He asked, curious. The old pervert answered, I'm surprised kids today don't know about me, I thought you knew. He returned in his pose, I'm the legendary ninja, Jiraiya-sama. Seal master, toad hermit and a super pervert, irresistible to women everywhere. Naruto's sweat dropped at the self-declared super pervert. So can you remove Orochimaru's 5-element seal? You know about it? Asked a very surprised Jiraiya. I'm studying seals, but of that one I just know its name, and that is restraining a defensive mechanism of the dead demon-consuming seal. Jiraiya looked with a little more attention to the brat. He was feeling a strong sense of déjà vu as he looked at him. Change his clothing, his hairstyle and remove those whiskers and he had a Minato just out of the academy, including his never-ending energy, his hyperactive ways and his interest in seals. Then he looked at the seal itself, and studied it with a critical eye. What he saw was impossible. Naruto should be dead minutes after the sealing with this seal. Minato could not have been such an idiot to place a seal that forcibly mixed the human chakra with Yuki. However, minutes passed, and he could find nothing that would stop that mixing in that seal. Instead, he found a control mechanism, inaccessible from the outside without the key in his possession, to regulate the mixing rate. How can he be alive with such a seal? He asked, worriedly. Naruto sweated, and not from the heat. Started Naruto. He felt trapped. If this man started thinking the fox took over, it was better to tell him about his bloodline, but Kushina, there is no other explanation. He inherited her bloodline, but that means... Naruto realized he was so shocked he had simply thought aloud, not really asking questions. However, that meant this Jiraiya was one of those high-ranked ninja who knew of his mother's bloodline. Jiraiya exploded in a wide smile, then he seemed to remember where he was, and asked Naruto, how far along? It has just 3 tails left, Ero Sennin, and recently I found instruction on how to keep the seal at the optimal performance. It has no more than 6 months left. Probably even less than that. Jiraiya was actually smiling, a serious, but relieved smile. So you know about her too? Asked Jiraiya. I have 2 of the family scrolls and I can probably find the rest, said Naruto, unwilling to disclose everything. Well, brat, I hope that you are ready, because since tomorrow, you are my disciple. Now let me get rid of that seal and continue with water walking. About that, you are doing good, you just need practice. After we are done here, I'll have to see the Hokage. And never speak about the true purpose of the seal until it disappears, to anyone, am I clear? Clear, Ero-sensei? Damn brat. His fingers lighted with chakra and he hit Naruto right in the seal. Naruto believed the unsealing could have been done a little more gently, but he evidently didn't like that last Ero-sensei comment. Unsealing done, the pervert left the premise, probably to the benefit of the female population in the hot springs. So the third Hokage himself didn't know? Asked Naruto to himself, or just that pervert? Arg. I forgot to ask him if he knew my father, cried Naruto, before returning to his work. In the middle of all that, Ebisu continued to sleep undisturbed. Akiko was quietly conversing with the young genin archivist about the last shinobi war, trying to keep away from personal information. She realized, by talking with this genin, that even the reserve corps did missions once in a while. The lowest of D ranks, because of the lack of supervision, but missions nonetheless. She had to either abandon her cover before being discovered as some kind of spy, or actually improve it, making it real with the help of Ebisu, Iruka, or the Hokage. However, if the Hokage was informed of it, he would make inaccessible to her the one information she was actually looking for, so in a bout of awesome stubbornness, she decided she would present her identity to the Hokage with a successful infiltration and espionage mission in her belt, infiltrate his own tower. A self-assigned B-rank mission to infiltrate the clan archives and find out the name of the husband of Kushina Uzumaki. It even sounded official. Saying goodbye to the other genin, Akiko left to return home, her mission clear, and the first step done. She had a date tomorrow with the genin archivist Yasha Hariki, to discuss a little more about the history of the clans of Konoha. Naruto, again, the original one, after drying himself off, fell into the bed, completely tired. He finally managed to stand in the water for 5 minutes, if the water was completely still and he kept his concentration. Ebisu, who regained consciousness a couple hours after the pervert left, said he was good enough that he could leave the mastering of the technique to the clones, now. Since he was too tired to continue, he guessed a clone would be, too, so he simply left to return home. Once he was back, he briefly nodded to the clones and took the first family scroll, reading that second half before contacting his mother and going to bed. What once was the Akiko clone, now in his natural shape, just entered with the rice and began preparing his dinner. The true Naruto, instead, did not even pay attention to the good smells coming from the kitchen. His eyes were glued to the scroll, completely shocked. The massive summoning of fireflies require the opening of the Death Gate? He read again. Yep. The Death Gate is the door from the chakra circulatory system to the far plane. Upon the death of a living creature, the chakra leaked away from the coils slowly opens the gates in sequence, ending with obviously the Death Gate. From there the soul can leave the body and reach the far plane. He looked in the document, some way to disprove what he read, but he found a single passage. Instead, the opening of the Death Gate is, for most human, a suicide endeavor. Impossible to even manage unless all the previous 7 gates are already open and drained. However, our white chakra, thanks to its incredible healing properties, allows us to do it without excessive dangers to our bodies or souls. The ordered opening of the celestial gates, called the warrior path, causes the chakra stored in the gates themselves to be released in the inner coils, together with both the beneficial and harmful effects of the release of the limit imposed by the gate itself. This normally allows the body to increase its combat power enormously, at great damage to the user's health. Unfortunately, our bloodline precludes us from getting the true benefit of this path, because the innate healing properties of white chakra subsides both advantages and disadvantages of the opening of the gates. An ordinary person opening the initial gate would receive a 10-fold increase in muscle strength, and would tear them up very easily, causing great muscular pain for several minutes and possible heavy damage to many muscle groups. Our white chakra would somehow replace the limiting effect of the gate itself, leaving us with just a modest increase in muscle strength, up to about double strength, for a very short time, less than a second, with little to no damage to muscles, easily repaired in a few seconds if needed. The only true advantage of opening the initial gate for our clan is the freeing of a great amount of chakra stored in reserve in the gate. The Way of the Lotus, as it is known in Konoha, is forever precluded to our clan. Damn, so I cannot learn freaky eyebrows technique even if I work really hard. My body simply cannot do it. Well, that is what he must feel about ninjutsu and genjutsu, so I guess it is a tiny bit fair. Inversely, the Way of the Summoner is where our bodies excel in the control of the celestial gates. By opening first the Death Gate instead of the initial gate, The influx of chakra trapped inside the gate has no way of entering the inner coils, but our white chakra can guide it to the far plane instead, where it will form a bridge, allowing a swarm of fireflies to be summoned to the real world. Be aware that allowing the open death gate to access the inner coils, by opening all of the celestial gates, will still eventually cause the death of the user. Well, good to know, said Naruto. Without white chakra, the chakra of the open death gate, without a way to relieve pressure in the inner coils, would bust out the heart of the user, causing a quick but painful death. This known fact is often used by the Hyuga clan's Gentle Fist in their famous heart death strikes. Wow, awesome, said an awed Naruto. Even if he could not use the lotus, he could still get some use from those gates. And he apparently could survive. Wait a moment. A Hyuga death blow in the heart? Hinata! He yelled, surprising the clones. He calmed down, remembering that he injected white chakra in her heart just before medic Nin swarmed her, so she probably was safe now. But that meant that Neji really wanted to kill her. It was a deliberate mortal blow. His fury against Neji reached an unknown level, to the point where he started feeling Yuki seep into his coils, before he was knocked out by his own clones. After a 30 minutes rant in the seal's mixing chamber, an amused Kushina finally got to ask, "What's wrong, Naruto-chan?" "Neji is what's wrong, Mom," snarled Naruto. "I've been reading the second half of the scroll, since Super Freaky Eyebrows and Kakashi-sensei told us about the gates. And I read that the Hyuga are known to hit tenketsu over the heart to force open the death gate of the victim, causing them a quick but painful death." "Yes, it's true. That ass, Neji, my first opponent in the finals, used that on his cousin Hinata. Probably the only decent Hyuga from what I've heard around. And just because she is considered a failure by her clan." How is she?" "I don't know, but I haven't heard of a funeral, so I hope she's alive. I managed to use a cure on her as soon as I could write in her heart. I felt her breathing get better, and soon after that medic Nins got to her." "That's good, Naruto-chan. You probably saved her life, you know?" "Yeah, I read about the pressure and the white chakra. However, how come your Jonin-sensei decided to explain to you the celestial gates?" "Ah, right. Let me finish my story, so we can arrive to that point." "Oh, yes." Naruto spent the next hour repeating, with just a few minor embellishments, the events since his strange graduation up until his meeting with Jiraiya. "I guess there is no longer a true need of that book. You have already witnessed its self-destructive potential firsthand. I still want you to read it, though, so get one as soon as you can. I need to know also how can I fare against the Gentle Fist and the other Konoha finalists if you know anything about their clans. The most problematic for you would probably be the Aburame kid." Shino? Why?" The Kikai bugs love our chakra. Using a white jutsu on an Aburame is like giving them a soldier pill. Draining it causes the same effect, too. Luckily, the fox's seal will protect your chakra until you can learn how to seal it yourself, if needed." Naruto shivered at the idea of being swarmed by amorous overenergetic Kikai bugs. On the other hand, if you are ever paired with one, you can increase his/her power by using a simple member of the Cure Jutsu family on him/her. That was good to know. For the Hyuga, you will need to learn the Asuna no Jutsu, to purify the tenketsu of your body if they get clogged, but organ damage can only be quickly repaired by the Jonin level white jutsu, so be careful and don't get caught. About the Kaiten, if the kid knows it, I would suggest to master the first scroll completely. Why? So you can gain access to the Farplane Guardians. In particular, I would suggest you to contact and summon Carbuncle, the Shield Guardian. You won't find anyone who comes close to his abilities with barriers and shields. He can make, and if he gets enough power, break them easily." Naruto was awed. With those abilities at his disposal, he could actually shame Neji's pride, his Gentle Fist mastery. He would probably make an enemy of the whole clan, but he didn't care. A clan that treated his own as they treated Hinata didn't deserve his respect. About the other Konoha kids from clans you may face in the exam, our bloodline isn't particularly effective or ineffective. The Sharingan can't copy them, so don't worry about holding back on the white jutsu if you need them. However, you'll have to warn him to not try to copy your summoning technique, because if he foolishly tried to open the death gate. Naruto shivered, thinking back to what he read in the scroll. "So how do I open the gates?" "Yes, Naruto-chan, I'll teach you, but first I must tell you a few things that I noticed in your life story. The first is about how you constantly use irritating nicknames for people you like, and the second, well, you need to know it since you are old enough. You may have heard about it, it is often referred to as the birds and the bees." "Are you sure about it, Jiraiya?" asked the Hokage. He had dismissed the ANBU a few moments after they begun talking, due to the secrecy of the topic. "Yes, I'm sure about it. That damn brat didn't tell us anything about what the seal would do to the fox. We assumed it would simply keep it locked up." "It is a great relief hearing about it, actually," said the aged Hokage, feeling years younger, as if a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. It is not all a good news, however. There is a group of S-rank missing nin, called the Akatsuki. I don't know their final plan or many of their members, but I know they want the Biju and travel in groups of 2. If they were to discover this. Yes, I understand. Naruto may be in danger even after the death of the fox. They are likely to not believe that the strongest of the Biju has been killed by a kid. Luckily, they will need him alive. Unluckily, once they discover the truth, he will no longer be useful. The Hokage lit his pipe, thinking. Jiraiya, are you willing to train Naruto after the exams? He will need to protect himself from them fast, since he will not be able to access the demon's Yuki for long. You are right, sensei. I will take him with me. 3 years of intensive training should be enough to keep him alive long enough to escape if he meets 1 or 2 Akatsuki members. The Hokage sighed, compiled and signed an apprenticeship permission for Uzumaki Naruto to Jiraiya of the Sannin. Here it is, Jiraiya. I'm entrusting his safety to you. Jiraiya could only nod, before poofing away in a cloud of smoke. Naruto waited outside Sakura's house. A clone of him, actually, the true one, has been kidnapped by Jiraiya at the crack of dawn, barely giving him time to get dressed and eat a few cereals. The pervert even refused to let him eat instant ramen, because it would take too long to cook. And after he saw him create 10 shadow clones, he hijacked most of them to give them specific jobs. He sent a couple to Ebisu-sensei, 1 to read Ebisu's book on the wind element jutsu, 1 to do water walking, 1 to Irika to do basic punching and kicking, hinged as an academy kid in Irika's morning class, 1 to do target training, 1 to revise all chakra control exercises he knows, excluding water walking, and left the other 3 to do whatever Naruto created them for. 1 went out as a Kiko, 1 continued practicing seals, and the last was here. He actually didn't protest. A quick scan on the pervert showed him he was actually the real deal. He was probably stronger than the Hokage himself, and by a good margin. He was a toad summoner, while being the toad hermit, and his summoning one before him was a big clue. He could power himself up even beyond the scan level by using something called Sage Mode, and his favorite jutsu were so numerous that the skin just got lost after the first few. He had a natural water affinity, and acquired earth and fire as secondary. Even lightning and wind were no slouch, just not at the level of the others. So this was a Kage-level ninja. He is actually more than impressive. Yesterday's talk with Mom has been really enlightening. He couldn't remember ever being so embarrassed. At first though Mom was no, he couldn't think about it. Not about her. He went red just by remembering. She also explained that most girls his age were more interested in the mature kind of boy because as girls they grew up sooner. And that Sakura-chan didn't really like Sasuke per se. She probably liked a pedestal she and the other girls built of a Sasuke Uchiha and worshipped that icon. Naruto still didn't completely understand it. Mom even tried to explain that what he was feeling for Sakura was something like that, too. He could scarcely believe it, but Mom said it. While waiting for Sakura to wake up, he made a mental catalog of his interactions with the pink-haired girl. Even if it pained him, he realized his mom was right. He had built a perfect Sakura in his mind and ignored every hint, or even every proof that would deviate from that image. He had a crush on a girl who didn't really exist, and that more than everything hurt him. With new resolve, he decided to get to know the true Sakura, while trying to ignore Sakura's obsession, remembering that she, too, was loving a boy who didn't truly exist. The first step in getting to know the true Sakura-chan was helping her get training, or even accompanying her to see Sasuke at the hospital. He just would add visiting Lee and Hinata if she didn't want to leave the Uchiha. Chuji wasn't hurt very much and was probably already home. 2 hours later, Sakura finally left and Naruto showed himself, hailing her. Sakura-chan, good morning. Naruto, what are you doing here? She didn't look too annoyed, but evidently wasn't in a good mood either. Yesterday, Kakashi-sensei left me to a Jonin to train for the finals, but I wanted to be sure he left you something to do. I wouldn't put past him to completely forget about you. Sakura seemed surprised by his thoughtfulness, and said, Kakashi left me a couple scrolls for a training regime. Naruto's eyes narrowed. Just scrolls? She needs help in the physical department, and she needs to see with her eyes what a true training regime is. Better take her to Ebisu-sensei. Naruto then said, come with me, I'm taking you to Ebisu-sensei. Scrolls can't compare to actual instruction in what you need. Sakura started to protest, since Naruto was actually offering to share his instructor, but he seemed to read her mind and said, actually, I'm no longer mainly training with him. Yesterday, while I was training at the hot springs with Ebisu-sensei, I met a self-declared super pervert. Ebisu-sensei tried to stop him, but was defeated in a second. He turned out to be Jiraiya, one of the Densetsu no Sannin, one of the legendary 3 ninja, and he is a seal master. He couldn't tell her about either his seal or the Orochi, so he had to twist the truth a little. He was a little impressed of my knowledge in seals, and this morning he kidnapped me from my bed at the crack of dawn, and told me that got the Hokage to give him permission to train me until the finals. Sakura was surprised. One of the Sannin was actually impressed with Naruto. You are a clone, aren't you? Said Sakura, connecting the dots. Yes, the boss is now with that pervert, said Naruto. And to give you an idea of how much a pervert he is the author of Sensei's Orange books. Sakura froze. One of the most renowned ninja of her village wrote that smut? Just don't dare to copy him, Naruto. Even complaining it's useless. I told him in his face that his book was trash and he was a pervert, but he simply told me I didn't understand art, and replied that he wasn't just a pervert, but a super pervert. He is actually proud of it, if you can believe it. Sakura was appalled. I hope becoming weird is not a requirement to rise to the higher ranks, or I will be content to remain a genin forever, said Sakura, with heartfelt passion, remembering Kakashi and Guy. Naruto thought about it for a while, and shuddered too. They talked of little things on the way to Training Ground 34, the training ground assigned to him by Ebisu-sensei for their training. Sakura saw the Jonin hard at work to guide a clone of Naruto through target practice, and another practicing hand seals to become faster. Ebisu-sensei, I brought to you a new student, said Naruto. Ebisu turned and saw the two coming. Naruto and number 3, I guess. What do you mean a new student? Well, since Jiraiya-sensei took over my training, you are free to take a new student, aren't you? Technically Kakashi didn't assign me Sakura. Did Kakashi-sensei ask you to train me specifically? Or did he ask your help for his team? Or his student? If so, Sakura-chan is one too. Sakura has been left completely to herself for the whole month, you know. Ebisu thought back about the wording of Kakashi's request, and realized the brat was right. Kakashi's body language and tone implied Naruto's training, but... You are right, Kakashi did tell me to train one of his students, and now due to the Hokage's orders you are Jiraiya's. Your new teacher is just asking me to help a couple of your clones, and I can fulfill Kakashi's request by training Sakura. Sakura smirked on that well-thought sidestep of rules she just heard. She had been lucky, really. Naruto used his lucky streak of nailing Jiraiya-sama for his own training to help her, too. And she was glad that Ebisu-sensei she guessed was a good person to exploit that little loophole for her benefit. Let me see Kakashi's training regime and then I'll see your actual ability. Let's start with a simple spar. Okay, brat, the warm-up is done, said Jiraiya, to the real Naruto. After 3 hours of running, jumping, stretching, evading fireballs, traps and pits, he said this was just the warm-up. I want to see now how far you are in your family jutsus. Not very much, I'm afraid. I barely know Cure and Scan, and I perfected them just before or even during the preliminaries. I'm learning to open the gates to summon the Guardians, but I just began yesterday with the theory behind it. The Fox's seal is stopping almost all of my white chakra. Jiraiya nodded. He was woefully behind what an Uzumaki of his age would be, but he couldn't refute the facts. He examined the seal himself. He was actually surprised the boy had any white chakra at all in his system, bearing an injury. Jiraiya smirked also, because he noted the brat's respect for him skyrocketed a few minutes after being woken up. Surely he used that scan on him, and realized his magnificence. Okay, brat. There is nothing I can help you with your family jutsu, so you'll have to practice them in your own time. Since your clones are learning stuff for you, you'll learn something they cannot. I'll teach you how to summon toads. Naruto was about to ask a question, but was silenced by Jiraiya's gaze. Yes, I know you have your family summons, and they are good, I can tell you. But they don't preclude you from learning ninja summons as well, because they are summoned in a completely different way. They will add a great deal of versatility, because unlike your summons you can use them as messenger, scout and our great company as well. The old pervert bit his hand, made a few hand seals and slammed his hand on the ground, yelling Kuchios no jutsu. A spider net of seals left his hand, and with a poof of smoke a large toad appeared. He dropped a very large scroll from his mouth and waited. Jiraiya took and opened the scroll before Naruto, who was a little apprehensive. His mother told him to sign this very contract if the pervert offered it, saying something along the lines of it is only right or something similar. He hoped he wouldn't regret it later, but he decided to sign it. Following the old man's instructions, he bit his hand and signed the scroll with his blood, including his fingerprints. Giving back the scroll to the toad, Jiraiya then showed him the hand seals for the summoning jutsu. Kuchios no jutsu! Yelled Naruto, and in a poof of smoke a tadpole appeared. You suck! Yelled Jiraiya. Use more chakra, you damn brat! The summoning technique is done for brain-dead people just like you with tanks of chakra and no control. You just have to pour in all you can. Shut up, Ero-sennin. Do you usually pour all your chakra in a technique you know nothing about? Replied Naruto. What do you mean know nothing about, brat? This is amply covered in the academy material. Well, if you forgot about it, I'm the damn fox brat, you pervert. If it wasn't for Iruka-sensei I would have learned nothing in that poor excuse for an academy. Jiraiya was actually surprised by that comeback, especially the rage behind it, but covered it well. It actually made sense, those stupids. So, now that you know, get to it! Yelled Jiraiya. Naruto repeated the jutsu, and this time the scroll-bearer toad returned in a puff of smoke. Naruto actually swayed a little from the effort. Even if he didn't deplete his chakra reserves, he never expended that much chakra in a single go. He was used to divide it, yes, but not expel so much of it in a single burst. Again! Yelled Jiraiya. He complied, and for an hour he summoned smaller and smaller toads as his fatigue grew. The last one, who called himself Gamakichi, actually remained around after seeing his summoner faint dead before him. What happened to him, pervert? Asked Gamakichi. As the son of Gamabunta he heard plenty about Jiraiya, all of it bad. He just overextended himself. It's good though, soon his tenketsu and chakra pathways will be able to accommodate such a great expenditure of chakra to summon bigger toads. And don't call me pervert. Gamakichi didn't understand a thing, and ignored the rebuke, but he guessed it was senseless babble and ignored the pervert. Alright, Sakura. It's enough, Ebisu said, after the kunoichi hit the wooden post for the 300th time. Kakashi's schedule was right to the spot, and his evaluation of your actual level very good. Still, I'd like to supervise your training, seeing that you have a number of smaller problems that this schedule won't cover. I'd like also for the two of you to learn more advanced traps since you are at a good level for a genin, he said, looking at a Naruto's clone too. For Sakura, I'd add a specialty that would make use of her perfect control, such as genjutsu or a medical veterinary field, possibly both. Cha! Take that, Ino pig! Said Inner Sakura, imagining a beaten-up Ino and a smiling Sasuke. Thank you for your words, sensei, said Sakura, actually happy for some true suggestions for her career, and promising herself to look at those two fields to see if she had any talent in it. Akiko was terrified. After Mom's speech yesterday, she was really conscious of what a boy would want to do to her, even if she made herself as well, not unattractive, but as invisible as she could be and still be in character. Meeting with that Yasha guy maybe was a bad idea, but she wouldn't give up. She had a mission to do. After all, girls in infiltration mission had to do things like these or even worse, shudder, to complete them. She wouldn't expect any less from herself. And she had to hurry. The pervert surely told the Hokage that she knew of the Uzumaki clan, and could be removing that scroll even now. Naruto woke up near the river, hearing the usual giggle of his perverted sensei. So you woke up, bro? Said a voice near his head. A toad, that he barely remembered to have summoned just before falling exhausted, greeted him. Oh, hello? Sorry, I was really out of it when I summoned you. What's your name? I'm Gamakichi, and the next time you call me, remember to give me some sweets. After that he vanished in a cloud of smoke. So he stayed behind just to tell me that? Naruto said, annoyed. Our sleeping beauty awakens, said Jiraiya, still looking in his spyglass. Are you ready to continue? I want you to summon until you are on the verge of chakra exhaustion. With a grumbled yes, Ero-sensei he resumed his summoning practice. 4 hours he summoned toad after toad, getting to know a few of them, but this time, as soon as he started summoning the smaller toads, Jiraiya told him that it was enough for the day. His lower chakra regenerating rate was starting to make itself known. Jiraiya-sensei asked an exhausted Naruto, still on the ground. What can you tell me of my parents? Jiraiya looked a little sad, but said, I cannot tell you anything about your father, brat. But since you already know about her, I will tell you about Kushina. The Hokage told me you were supposed to know of her identity only after you reached Chuunin rank. You would have known earlier if we thought you inherited her bloodline too, but… Naruto laughed acidly for a moment. It always came back to the fox, the bane of his existence. I knew your mother since she was a newly minted jonin, so I don't know of her earlier days. She was 15 then. She was a real beauty, with red hairs and a body to die for, and Jiraiya suddenly felt a spike of killer intent from his pupil and decided to go on. As I was saying, I had only a single mission with her, together with one of my old genin squad, that the world now knows as the 4th Hokage, and Suminazuka, your preliminary opponent's mother. We were at war with IWA back then, and we didn't have much time to fraternize. Not that she gave me the time of the day, that is. Naruto exhaled a relieved breath. Jiraiya heard, but didn't say anything. We had to get to know each other's abilities, so Kushina actually shoved us a few of them, and I can say I was impressed. Jiraiya lost himself in reminiscing that mission, and went on to recount the events, taking care of ever naming the 4th Hokage or his relationship to Kushina. Akiko smiled, looking at the clan archives. That Yasha was a really gullible fellow, no wonder he was still a genin even at 18. He swallowed hook, line and sinker her story about her interest of the recent history of lost clans, and even brought her in the tower. The archives were not true sensitive material, but still its access was supposed to be monitored. Still, he didn't allow her to handle the scrolls, but that wasn't a problem. Except the fact that Kushina Uzumaki apparently was the last member ever recorded in her family scroll. It was suspiciously convenient. Waiting for a momentary distraction of the other genin, Akiko created a shadow clone and made him transform into an empty scroll. Akiko swiftly added it to the pile. Examining a few more clan scrolls to not arouse suspicion and taking a few notes, including the fact that Neiji's father was the identical twin of Hinata's and marked as deceased, as well as both mothers, they left the archives. The clone, left behind, dispelled his henge, changing itself into Akiko. Best to lose just the cover if she had to abandon the mission. Taking the Uzumaki scroll out again, she unrolled it, and examined the place where her and her father's name should be, and tried to use a bit of white chakra in it. Bingo! Though Akiko. Two names appeared in the empty spaces, obviously one the son of the other. They were Namikaze Minato and Uzumaki Namikaze Naruto. Unfortunately, no other Uzumaki were still living. Namikaze Minato, eh? Why do I have the feeling I have already heard of him? Akiko let the white chakra go and the scroll returned to its previous state, then replaced the scroll in its rightful place and dispelled herself. Next step, discover the ninja history of her father. Jiraiya finished with his story. It was nothing exceptional, just a minor A-rank mission during wartime to get rid of a shipment of supplies for Iwa's frontline ninja. However, the pervert managed to catch his mother's quirks really fast, so he suspected that even if they had a single mission together, they got to know each other outside of them, too. He was also fascinated by the fourth Hokage, even if the pervert never called him by name, just using brat just like he did with him. During the pervert's story he even got back the archive's clone information, but he didn't dare to ask Jiraiya about Namikaze Minato. So he asked about someone else. Ero-sensei, the fourth taught Kakashi-sensei, right? Yes, brat, and don't call me that. So why did Kakashi-sensei ignore me and Sakura then? I'm sure the fourth didn't ignore his teammates. Jiraiya sighed, and appeared to search for an acceptable answer. Brat, you must realize that he is a human being too. Your sensei is one of the greatest ninja of this village. He was a perfect ANBU commander, but has forgot what being a genin is, since he was promoted to Chuunin at 6. At 6? Naruto asked, shocked. Yes, he had been raised as a ninja from a very young age, and as an incredible prodigy he managed to become a ninja at 5. He became Jonin at 13, and a few years later he entered an ANBU, becoming rapidly a captain. His only previous experiences with teaching is with his fellow ANBU, the elite, already well-experienced ninja who know their strengths and weaknesses, as well as how to address them without being told. So he simply forgot that we are just beginners? Yes, I think it is so. Sasuke is rather similar personality-wise to how he was at his age, and he too has been raised by some of the best ninja around. Kakashi probably sees a bit of himself in him, as well as something else, but this is a personal matter of Kakashi that I won't disclose. By giving you a personal teacher and Sakura a few scrolls is a very good first step for him. But not enough, said Naruto, finally understanding a bit more about his lazy sensei. Yes, probably not enough for Sakura, but he did give you a good teacher, and then I took over, brat, don't forget it. Yes, Ero-sensei. Damn brat, said Jiraiya, kicking Naruto in the river. What do you mean Sasuke is not here? Said Sakura to the nurse. While going to the hospital, Naruto's clone and Sakura went to Ino's flower shop to get a few flowers for their friends. Ino decided to tag along. He left very early this morning with his teacher. So, a wasted trip. Hinata and Lee cannot receive visitors yet, and my Sasuke-kun is away, said Ino. Your Sasuke-kun, Ino pig? Since when? Said Sakura. Since I first saw him, naturally, forehead. Naruto silently withdrew. Better not get involved, thank you very much. He looked at the trees outside and wondered what Kakashi-sensei was teaching Sasuke, right now. 2 weeks of training with the pervert made one thing very clear in Naruto's mind, make that 2. But he already knew that the man was a pervert of epic measure, he admitted it himself, he was a slave driver. When the damn pervert managed to get his mind out of the gutter, he was an implacable taskmaster, and pounded both his mind and his body with exercise after exercise. Taijutsu, ninjutsu, even a few rudiments of genjutsu were drilled in him as if he wouldn't live until the next week if he stopped for a second. And he enjoyed every second of it. Ordinary people would have called him a masochist, but for the first time he had the, almost, undivided attention of a single teacher, hell-bent on him actually learning the material, pounding him when he didn't before explaining him again in a more basic way. In between arguing with him when he was being a pervert, and engaging in a shouting match of epic proportions. When he asked him for poisons for his training for the Asuna no Jutsu, he gave him a couple and showed him a ninja supply store where he could discreetly buy some, from the irritant to the highly deadly. After all, that jutsu, like the cure one, required mimicking his own natural white chakra healing by building a construct. Its effect on the body was simply to attack and smooth all extraneous energies in the body. A healthy body worked like a well-oiled machine, all energies perfectly balanced to create a harmonious, ordered flow of energies. Even injuries did not disturb that flow, because the energies that came into play were those of the body itself. Poisons, many diseases, gentle fist-injected chakra, genjutsu were all caused by extraneous element, and the body recognized this fact by fighting against them. Either with its immune system, diseases and poison, or by the flow of chakra, gentle fist and genjutsu effects, if left unchecked, will slowly dissipate in time. Kushina simply greatly sped up this process, purging the body of these invaders in a matter of a couple seconds. Naruto thought that the genjutsu dispelling effect of that jutsu was an immense relief. In his remedial lessons with Iruka-sensei, he discovered that the seal didn't allow him to stop his chakra flow, so until the fox was dead, he couldn't free himself from genjutsu in the ordinary way, with the Kai dispel. With the help of Ebisu's suggested book, he also managed to master the null arrow jutsu, a barrier of skin-tight white chakra that would absorb and completely nullify a single wind-based ninjutsu, of any magnitude. A pity it would not stack with itself to absorb more than one and didn't cover secondary damage either. He still stunned where the rock sent by the pervert's wind jutsu hit him, while the chakra-laden wind was nullified by his shield. However, after having seen the success of the jutsu, despite that particular weakness, Jiraiya-sensei sent him to get introductory books to the other four elements. Jiraiya was even able to get him a scroll of a taijutsu style named Whirlwind Strike, that he claimed had been created by the fourth Hokage himself for wind-natured users. It wasn't really finished, but Jiraiya said it would be an honor for him to complete it. And it was, because, even if he didn't tell anyone yet, he put together the pieces from ninja histories and discovered that the name of the fourth Hokage was truly Namikaze Minato, his father. He was ready to both explode of happiness, cry away with rage for all the suffering he endured, beam with pride and feel oceans of shame. He also realized that the few more enemies argument that he dismissed previously wasn't that small of a matter. Probably his father made an enemy of the totality of IWA and maybe even Kumo, its ally in the last war. If his enemies discovered his parentage before his village, he would become the most hated boy in three great ninja nations, his own, IWA and Kumo. Naturally, not a small feat, that. Hinata, in the hospital, had to yet recover her consciousness, but she was recovering nicely. Lee, instead, despite orders, could be seen training. His mother told him that because of the bone fragments in the spine, amongst the white jutsu only a Jonin level 1, regenerate, could help him now. Even his mother told him that he would require years of practice without the seal to manage to use that one. Sakura, together with Naruto, quickly completed Ebisu's lessons on Genin to Chuunin level traps, and she managed to pick up several genjutsu, which she became very proficient with, and an introductory book to medical jutsu that she was avidly reading up. Ebisu complimented her rapid progress on both fields. Akiko had completed her mission with complete success, and was writing her report for the Hokage right now, including holes in the tower security she found. Not big ones, but still. Naruto's remedial lessons, after the very basic of taijutsu, started to cover basic genjutsu, stealth and tracking. He even had to put away his jumpsuit after years of faithful service, but after his mother's nagging and Iruka's insistence he decided to indulge them, and picked up a dark orange and black jacket. With a black hood to cover his blonde hair when needed, normally kept inside to not provide leverage to an enemy. Under that he had a blood-red shirt, and dark brown, almost black ninja pants. His mother told him that he finally looked like a ninja. Iruka agreed, and so did everyone else. A pity there was so little orange in it. "Alright, Naruto-chan, now open it," said Kushina through the floating firefly. Since today's training was important, Naruto had dismissed all clones. He was sitting in his usual fishing spot, only this time he had a dead rabbit on the fire. Since now he was able to reach the far plane in a single attempt, he wanted something more substantial to eat than a single fish. And training to open the celestial gates could only be done in the real world. A powerful influx of chakra, united to a very brief sense of strength, accompanied his very first opening of the initial gate. Being the safest of the two gates he was allowed to open as first, it was the logical choice. However, the chakra that filled him was almost all white chakra. "It feels wonderful, Mom. I can feel the white chakra flow in all my body for the first time without that damn Yuki." Yes, the seal was designed by our ancestors, after all. They would have wanted to let their children still able to summon, or use family jutsu in an emergency. The gates get first priority to the white chakra. They still get plenty of ordinary one though. Without that safety measure, trying to open the death gate would be suicidal for you. "The flow stopped now," said Naruto, flexing his arms, crafting a couple cure structures and releasing them. A gate will need around an hour after it has been closed again to refill itself, and the seal will reduce the mixing rate to compensate the amount of white chakra going in it. "I don't want to waste the chakra I got from the gate. I'm trying to summon the strongest toad I can." Alright, try to get Gamabunta here. Even if he cannot hear me, it will be nice seeing him again. I'll get Gamakichi here first, so he can tell me his father's mood. With a few hand seals, Gamakichi appeared in a puff of smoke. Used to the little toad, he gave him a few candies before asking, Kichi, how is your old man? I want to try to summon him in a few moments. Gamakichi looked at Naruto, especially how he was glowing with chakra, and said, Go ahead, Ruto, he is looking forward to meeting you, as long as Jiraiya is not around. It's good, then I go. Kuchios no jutsu! Yelled Naruto, and with a colossal bout of smoke, appeared Gamabunta, the boss of the Toad Summons. Hello, old man? Said Gamakichi. Good morning, Gamabunta-sama, said Naruto, after the watchful eyes of his mother. It took a really long lecture on the importance of proper respect term and a threat of no more family scrolls for at least 6 months to get him to listen to what all his teachers tried and failed to make him understand about manners. Kushina tolerated Naruto's disrespect with Jiraiya because sincerely that man actually deserved it, but she put her foot down on everyone else, especially the Hokage. Since she had contact with her son again, she would make sure he was a civilized human being and no longer a screaming monkey, even if sometimes she despaired on making him do that transition. Luckily, most of their teachers gave credit to Iruka for his improvement, while Iruka gave it to Jiraiya, being both a legendary figure and never actually having met the man. Naruto, good to see you finally managed to summon me, and without that pervert around. I was actually looking forward to meeting you. It is a pity you are not old enough to go drinking together. Yes, Gamabunta-sama. However, I will get older, with time. Ha ha ha, well said, brat. I will look forward to it. Gamakichi, please return before dinner time, this time. Okay, old man, answered the small toad on Naruto's head. Gamabunta left the area with a giant smoke explosion. So, Kichi, what game do you wish to play today? Naruto. Oh mom, I used almost all my chakra to summon the boss. I cannot train anymore today, so I'll go play with Kichi and Konohamaru for a couple hours. Indeed, it was a strange thing, but Gamakichi, Konohamaru and his friends clicked together well as soon as they saw each other. They had a common mischievous spirit not dissimilar from Naruto's. They especially loved to scare girls. A talking toad could scare anyone who doesn't expect it, though. Leave a clone, at least. I need to instruct you on how to open subsequent gates, said Kushina, to her retreating son. He obeyed and then left. How are you, Hinata? Asked a worried Naruto, 2 days after summoning Gamabunta. Since today, Hinata was allowed visitors and Naruto came in person, after his training with the pervert. A firefly was floating in the ceiling, observing the scene, but in particular Hinata. Naruto was still training, by keeping a constant trickle of white chakra from a cracked open death gate to the far plane, to allow a single firefly to be around him the whole day. It was hard, very hard, because the gate tended to close itself when unattended. His mother told him that in battle he will likely be forced to keep it open for a good while if he used his summons, so this was a good training. It was just a side benefit that it allowed her to keep an eye on Naruto, really. Naruto-kun, I thank you for visiting. She became redder than a tomato in a few moments. Kushina resisted the temptation to bonk his son's head for his denseness regarding girls. How could he have missed such a colossal infatuation? An infatuation that probably had years to grow. But maybe the fact that he was worried about her could be a first step. She was certainly nicer than Sakura-chan, even if that girl mellowed a good deal in the last few weeks towards her son. But if her clan considered her weak, she would likely be shoved in the branch family in the future, and that girl was just too nice to deserve that fate. She made a mental note to get Hizashi and Minato together, and let them devise a counter for that damn Hyuga slavery seal, possibly one that could protect her bloodline from theft like the caged bird already did. I have to ask you about Neji, Hinata-chan, started a worried Naruto. Hinata bowed her head down. The silence was very long, but finally Hinata found either the courage or the right words. Naruto couldn't tell. He is unhappy, Naruto-kun. Even more than me. Naruto could not believe his ears. Her cousin tried to kill her and she. He shook his head. He understood her all too well, the pain, the hate, and the fact that she didn't hate her persecutors for being fallible humans. They were more alike than he, though. Thank you, Hinata-chan. I have reached a decision. Watch me in the finals, I will win for you as well. Yes, Neji will live, because it would break Hinata's heart. He will still be humiliated, but he now owed his life to Hinata-chan, even if he didn't know it, and probably didn't deserve it either. Why, you are welcome, Naruto-kun. As soon as Naruto left, she realized with a start that Naruto had called her Hinata-chan. She fainted immediately with a happy smile. Akiko marched toward the Hokage's office, an appointment requested 2 days ago under her actual identity of the Wasa Akiko, complete with her forged documents. She was glad it passed the old man's secretary's scrutiny, but she doubted she could simply be let inside the old Hokage-sama's office so easily. Probably even if the older Hokage-sama let her in, he would be watching her like a hawk, trying to pierce her true identity, and why did she bother to clumsily falsify all those papers just to meet him? Her prevision was right on the money. She was shown the way to the door, but she could already see the calculating eye on Hokage-sama. "Iwasa Akiko for a mission report, Hokage-sama," said in a smooth, professional and a little shy voice, and delivered her scroll right on his desk. The old man examined it suspiciously, then broke the seal and read. He began paling a bit as he read, throwing glances to her once in a while. He explained almost everything about her motives to create Akiko's identity, including the librarian's treatment, their expected behavior, the infiltration and acting potential, the uninflated prices in stores, the information gathering, also known as gossiping, in the Kunoichi grapevine, her self-assigned mission and the result of her success, including detailed names of all people whom have been presented with forged credentials to let him judge who had reported them secretly, and who had fallen for them without question. "So, Iwasa-san, are you here to stay?" he asked, slightly smirking. "After all, I remember your 6th birthday. You were such a vivacious little girl," then he said, laughing inside. "Yes, Hokage-sama. And letting me wear your hat all afternoon was the best present anyone ever gave me. I must thank you." Her identity proved to the man's approval. He destroyed the scroll. "You have put me in a tight situation, Akiko-chan. I cannot allow you to divulge what you discovered until you become a jonin. I hope you understand." "Completely, Hokage-sama. It would bring enemies down my head faster than the Yellow Flash himself." The aging Hokage smiled, and wrote a paper. "Bring me a photo and I'll make you some real identification. And congratulations on your mission. I'll add it as a B rank in both your files, and I'll even give you C rank pay for the information about the security in the tower. I hope you have plans to add this specialty to your resume." "Yes, Hokage-sama." As the young, slightly smiling and dared he say demure and shy Kunoichi left the room, Sarutobi began laughing heartily. He had been pranked in his own tower and didn't even recognize the young boy-girl, whatever, until he read the scroll. And despite the moral quandary of allowing the boy to continue this charade with his official blessing, his motivations were sound. He could not, in all honesty, reprimand the boy for using trickery to get what was his right. NB reports about the activity of the girl showed she used her ID to get only genin-level materials and below, or to shop in specialty ninja stores. He sighed, and prepared a form to dish a heavier punishment for Yasha Hariki. Letting an unauthorized person in a monitored area and allowing her to scan documents was a breach in security. And while he was at it, he would hide the Uzumaki clan register in a safer area and replace it with a fake. After all, the rightful heir already knew the secreted information in it, now. Jiraiya chose really well his new apprentice, and the old man was proud of both of them. Naruto was examining almost every book in the library for any information on the Byakugan. He had dozens of clones out, in the middle of the night, to not disturb usual visitors with his aggressive search. His mother told him that he shouldn't rely on her for every answer and had to learn how to get his own information when needed, and he reluctantly agreed. He prepared himself for a monumental headache, but he had no choice. His plans needed the most information he could get. It would not do him any good to try a plan and be foiled before it was even started by that Digitsu's power. He had ordered the clones to just scan books and not bother to read them, then replace them in the shelves. No one would discover his intrusion. His mission was successful. He got plenty of scraps to put together all the powers publicly known about the Byakugan, and in a ninja village that sort of secrets did not last very long. The Byakugan could see almost 360 degrees all around, minus a very small speck right behind his third vertebrae. It could see through matter and see chakra, its circulatory system, and as Neji demonstrated, the best could see also the tenketsu themselves. He found data on the most famous moves of the Gentle Fist, including Jukenho Hack, Rokujri and Sho, a frightening technique able to close up to 64 tenketsu in key places in the enemy's chakra circulatory system, to completely disable an opponent, and its various stronger versions. He doubted a genin, even as powerful as Neji was, could afford the chakra expenditure of those, but he would scan him soon, just to be sure and check which skills he actually knows. Amongst the information uncovered on the Hyuga bloodline, he found an interesting potential weak point. The user could not see under the ground unless he specifically tried to look in it. Oh, how his pranking senses vibrated after finding that one out! But he could not tip his hand before the match. He would ask either the pervert or Ebisu-sensei for an underground move jutsu, and use it to prepare a colossal seal trap for him. He just had to find out which one and practice setting it up in a short time. He had just a little more than a week, after all. However, he could become predictable if he started always using sealed traps, and that wasn't an option. He was the #1 unpredictable ninja in Konoha, and wanted to keep the title. Better to use the sealed trap as an additional layer to cover up something else. He just had to think it up before the match. Arg, where is Shikamaru when I need a strategy instead of a simple battle tactic? Yes, Naruto-chan, now that you are building the bridge to the far plane, think about Carbuncle. He has a long-standing relationship with our family and will easily answer to your call. He will need about 1/3 of the chakra in your death gate to manifest himself. Naruto did as requested, and soon, on the very tip of his probe, he could feel something akin to childish curiosity. Suddenly, that something grabbed the probe and drew from his gate about 1/3 of the chakra in it, as his mother warned him. And in a shower of fireflies before him appeared a floating emerald-green rat-like plush toy with a ruby embedded in its forehead. "I am not a plush toy, Naruto-sama," said a childlike voice in his head. If it was human, he would have guessed it was a 6 to 7 years old child who just spoke. "Sorry," Carbuncle started Naruto, while Kushina laughed loudly in his mind. "Carbuncle-chan, if you don't remember, I thought the very same thing the first time I summoned you." "I was trying to forget it, Kushina-sama." "So, you are the shielding guardian, right?" "That is correct, Naruto-sama. I specialize in building and demolishing shields and barriers. I'm usually employed to guard the children of the family, but that is because of my abilities, and not because I resemble a plush toy." Yes, right." Apparently the PL of the shield guardian could read his mind too, he even caught his though as he was making it. "Could be useful in battle." "Yes, Naruto-sama, we guardians, in exchange of your chakra, allow these fireflies construct to be under your command with an imprint of our personalities and powers. Since fireflies are controlled by your mind, we can actually hear your thoughts and act accordingly to your wishes. Naturally, we also will need chakra from your summoning gates to use our powers." "What do you mean with that?" "To use my most basic power, the ruby light, you will need to let me drain about 1/4 of the chakra normally stored in your death gate. If you have not enough, you can open the wonder gate, and so on. To use the powers of any guardian, you have to supply the power yourself, in addition to the power required to summon him. If you are forced to open the warrior gates, too, be careful to never let all your celestial gates be completely drained at the same time, or you will die." "Why yes, thank you, Carbuncle. I can feel the strain to keep the gate open is building, Naruto-sama. Please summon me again tomorrow and I'll instruct you on my powers." "Okay, Carbuncle. See you tomorrow." The PLA guardian disappeared in a shower of fireflies, with a whispered "I am not a plush toy," while his death gate slammed closed against his will, dissipating even his mother's firefly